Hi, it's Katrina. What happens when the world's newest technology meets its oldest secrets? For generations, we believed the stories of our ancestors were permanently lost to time, buried under centuries of dirt and secret texts. But today, advanced AI is cracking codes that have been silent for millennia and uncovering lost cities we never knew existed. Let's get into how AI is stepping into the past and why history as we know it is changing forever. An ancient scroll decoded by AI. We are on the verge of an AI revolution. For the first time in history, an unreadable scroll has been deciphered using artificial intelligence. AI has cracked open the secrets of a papyrus scroll that was owned by Caesar's family. This text was burnt to a crisp when Pompeii was destroyed. No wonder it's hard to read. It's thousands of years old, and it's burnt. In the 18th century, hundreds and hundreds of papyrus scrolls were discovered in a library in Pompeii. The library found in a fancy villa belonged to the father-in-law of Julius Caesar himself. In fact, it's the only preserved library of texts ever discovered from ancient Roman times. As you can imagine, the scrolls in this library are priceless. Just think of all the knowledge hidden in there. But there is one little problem, and it's that the books are all burnt. Every single scroll in the library was burnt like toast. When Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, it cooked Pompeii beneath a blanket of volcanic debris, and that includes the books. When archaeologists tried to unravel the scrolls, they crumbled to dust in their hands. Now, artificial intelligence has come to the rescue. Dr. Federica, a specialist in papyrus at the University of Naples, said the volcano may have actually saved the information inside the scrolls. Normally, ancient documents like this would decompose over 2,000 years. The only reason there are so many records from the ancient world is that they were carved into clay or stone. Real paper texts decompose quickly and are almost never found. Not intact and legible, anyway. The very high temperature of the Vesuvius eruption carbonized the scrolls. It preserved them perfectly underneath a layer of burnt stuff. If archaeologists can just scrape away the layer of burnt to get to the juicy toast beneath, they'll be able to read the scrolls. The first breakthrough came last year when Dr. Brent Seals at the University of Kentucky used CT scans to virtually unroll the scrolls. However, the black carbon ink was still indecipherable. So, a team of 3 students working in tech applied artificial intelligence to the problem. Yusuf Nader is a PhD student in Berlin. Luke Ferrator is a SpaceX intern, and Julian Schillinger is a Swiss robotics student. Together, the trio built an AI model used specifically to recognize letters through pattern recognition. The AI model successfully deciphered 2,000 Greek characters written on the scroll, but that's only 5% of the text. Check out this image from the Vesuvius challenge of the AI software doing its work. Those highlighted letters in the middle spell out purple. The tiny fragment that's been deciphered seems to be discussing sources of pleasure in life, specifically food and music. There is one passage where the author ponders whether smaller quantities of things can bring more pleasure. These are things we still wonder about years later. More isn't always better. The team is hoping to read at least 90% of 4 scrolls by early this year, 2025. The team is confident that eventually their program will be able to decipher all 800 burnt scrolls from the library. Make sure to subscribe and keep an eye out on upcoming videos because when the scrolls are deciphered, I'll be sure to let you know. Lost history in the empty quarter. Is the empty quarter really empty? The empty quarter is a vast desert region located in the Arabian Peninsula. Thanks to artificial intelligence, lost history is being revealed at the edge of one of our planet's most inhospitable deserts. It turns out that AI is better at spotting secrets buried under the sand than our naked eye. Imagine endless waves of sand dunes like a frozen ocean stretching as far as the eye can see. There are rocks everywhere and huge rust-colored dunes that look like something out of a sci-fi movie. And guess what? Very deep beneath all that, there is a whole lost world of human history just waiting to be discovered. It wasn't that long ago that archaeologists would journey into the desert with a team of camels and shovels in search of lost cities. There was no other way for them to track down the treasure, but all that has changed with modern technology. Today, archaeologists combine ground surveys with satellite imagery, scanning for anomalies that hint at buried secrets. Scientists can find ancient sites without leaving their computer screens. Isn't it crazy how easy things are getting with technology? You barely have to leave your house. The empty quarter is not so easily deciphered though. In the desert, Google Earth is basically useless. Sandstorms, swirling clouds of dust, and the bizarre patterns of dunes make detecting sites very difficult. Enter AI, the hero of the hour. Atmospheric scientist Diana Francis and her team created a machine learning algorithm. It can basically read satellite images taken with a special tech called SAR, or synthetic aperture radar. SAR uses radio waves to see through stuff like sand and soil, kind of like X-ray vision for Earth. You could use it to find lost cities in the jungle or even ancient stuff buried under Antarctic ice. Diana trained this AI brain using data from a 5,000-year-old site called Saruq al-Hadid, which is still being dug up in the desert near Dubai. After training, the AI became a pro at spotting other ancient cities hidden by the sand. Pretty cool, right? But what have they found so far? Sadly, not much. Take a look at this image from Khalifa University. The yellow circles on the left side show ongoing excavations. The red circle on the right side is where the AI program predicted that there could be another buried structure. What happens next is that archaeologists will go to the spot where AI thinks something is buried, they'll dig it up, and see what they find. If it's legit, the software will be used to track down other sites across the desert. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. If everything turns out well, AI will be able to point to the best possible excavation zones. Where would you like to see this technology used? Maybe the deserts of Egypt, Amazon jungle? Let me know in the comments. An alien in Peru. In the Peruvian desert, artificial intelligence has discovered an alien. I'm not even kidding. AI has found an actual alien in Peru. And that's not all. AI also identified a giant orca whale cutting off a human head with what looks like a kitchen knife. This might be the most insane discovery of the year. Scratch that, of the last decade in Peru. Researchers identified 303 previously unknown geoglyphs in the Peruvian desert. These geoglyphs belong to the group known as the Nazca lines. There are more of them. They were made by the Nazca civilization starting more than 2,000 years ago. Humanoid figures, domestic animals, birds, and fish have all been charted with help from machine learning algorithms. The giant anthropomorphic glyphs carved into the ground were found largely with help from AI and drones. Without this technology, scientists would be kicking rocks with their hands in their pockets. The research team hails from Yamagata University in Japan. Over a period of 6 months, the Japanese scientists examined 1,309 locations using a new AI system code named ResNet50. One of the collaborators on the project, physicist Marcus Freytag, said the AI basically threw out 98% of the satellite images. Imagine trying to find your car keys in a haystack. That's what humans were doing before. They had to sift through thousands of these super high-resolution pictures. But the AI? It's like it waved a magic wand and made 98% of the haystack disappear, leaving only the spot where your keys actually are. From September 2022 to February 23, researchers conducted a field expedition to confirm what the AI was telling them. Sure enough, 303 new geoglyphs were authenticated, and they are nothing short of spectacular. One of the coolest new Nazca lines is a geoglyph of an orca whale that is 72 feet long. That's longer than real orca whales. The whale is wielding a knife as it cuts off a human head. I can't even begin to imagine what this is supposed to represent. Do you think the Nazca had some sort of bloodthirsty whale god? The researchers also identified some motifs of plants and people and everyday animals, like I mentioned before. There are snakes, monkeys, cats. Most of these geoglyphs are around 30 feet long, located near the edges of ancient paths. And then there's the alien, or should I say aliens. Researchers found representations of humanoid figures that look suspiciously like extraterrestrials from another planet. I dare say there is barely anything human about them. Scientists believe the geoglyphs were drawn near pilgrimage routes to ancient temples, but there are a lot of geoglyphs, and researchers haven't found that many temples. This theory makes sense on paper, but in reality, the Nazca civilization existed 1,500 years before the Inca. They dominated the Peruvian desert around 200 BC and covered the landscape in beautiful and sometimes chilling glyphs. But you can only see the glyphs from the sky, and that's what's so bizarre about them. Who in the world were the Nazca carving these things for if they couldn't even see them themselves? Some scholars believe the glyphs were religious. They may have been carved as tributes to powerful gods who looked down on the Nazca from above. Another suggestion is that they were astronomical guides, like primitive calendars etched into the earth. Then there are those who believe the geoglyphs marked runways and parking lots for alien ships. The fact that there are alien glyphs carved into the ground backs this theory up, don't you think? At the end of the day, not even AI can solve the mystery of why the Nazca lines were created. But by finding new figures, AI is certainly helping scientists get closer to the truth. I should mention that the AI identified another 500 figures that have yet to be confirmed by scientists. Did you know there were so many? Revealing the power of oracle bones. Have you ever had your fortune told? Artificial intelligence has been used to help study Chinese oracle bones. These were bones used to look into the future 3,000 years ago. I bet the ancient oracles didn't see their precious magic bones being analyzed by hyper-intelligent robots. Oracle bones were used in the original art of pyromancy. In modern video games, a pyromancer is a magician who wields flame spells. In the late Shang period of China, circa 1250 BC, pyromancy was a form of divination. Real pyromancers would either use ox bones, specifically ox scapula, or turtle plastron when gazing into the future. They didn't have crystal balls, so they would write questions to the gods on the bones. The oracle/pyromancer could ask any kind of question at all. If you were a member of the royal family and wanted to know whether you should make a move against a political rival, you would first visit one of these diviners. If you were a military captain, you might visit a pyromancer before going into battle to make sure your strategy would pay off. With the questions written on the oracle bone, the bones exposed to intense heat, it was roasted over a fire until it started to crack. And then the pyromancer would interpret the pattern cracks to come up with their vision of the future. I'll ask again. Have you ever had your fortune told? Did it come true? Were any turtles harmed in the making of your fortune being told? I'm just curious. Let me know in the comments. Scientists from China and England went all out analyzing these ancient oracle bones from 3,000 years ago. But honestly, the whole thing was a bit odd. It was one of those studies that makes you go, wait, why? They were trying to figure out if the people who wrote on these bones were left-handed or right-handed. Talk about a deep dive. You should know that there are a lot of oracle bones floating around the world. At least 13,000 of them have been found in China, totaling a little more than 130,000 inscriptions. The team of scientists looked at digital copies of oracle bones and used AI to identify patterns that would be otherwise very difficult to analyze manually. It often takes 1,000 characters to make an estimate of whether someone used their left or right hand for writing. But AI could do it almost instantaneously. With the algorithm prepared, scientists started feeding data into the AI program. The AI scanned images of ancient oracle bones and determined the dominant hand used to write them. I bet you can guess the end result of this study all by yourself. That's right, the AI determined that most ancient Chinese oracles were right-handed. Although the results of this study didn't come as a shock to anyone, it was still an interesting experiment. Scientists showed off how AI is truly changing archaeology. And now for a quick break, because it's shout-out time! I want to give a big shout-out and thank you to I Am Bush and Donovan Wood for supporting this channel. We wouldn't be here without you guys. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already to join the Origins Explained family, because why not? Finding shipwrecks. Can cutting-edge technology breathe new life into a 250-year-old warship? The oldest commissioned naval ship in the world is being kept alive with help from AI technology. The ship is older than the United States. It's like a floating museum, and they are using AI to keep it in tip-top shape. This is the incredible story of the HMS Victory, best known for the role it played in an epic sea battle more than 200 years ago. The HMS Victory is an icon of British naval history. When you think about England in the early 19th century as the greatest seafaring empire in human history, the HMS Victory is the epitome of that vision. When it was commissioned in 1758, the HMS Victory was set to be the largest warship of its kind. The boat held 104 guns and was designed to be a floating castle. This wasn't just a boat. This was a weapon of mass destruction. I would not want to face off against this thing. The Victory was so big, it required 820 men to run smoothly. The ship fought at the First Battle of Ushant in 1778 against the French, and it fought again at the Second Battle of Ushant in 1780. It participated in the Siege of Gibraltar, fought in the French Revolutionary Wars, and had to be reconstructed in 1800 because it was so heavily damaged. I mean, it went through a lot. The victory made a comeback in 1805 at what's been called the most legendary naval battle of the 19th century. The Battle of Trafalgar was fought between British Royal Navy and the combined forces of the French and Spanish navies. You might not know this, but Napoleon tried to invade the United Kingdom. That would be Napoleon as in Napoleon Bonaparte. He ordered the Spanish and French fleets to seize control of the English Channel. What happened instead was a triumphant victory for the British. Napoleon failed to invade the UK, and so did Hitler a century later. Lord Nelson brought the British fleet to meet the combined forces of Napoleon in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Cape Trafalgar. Even though Nelson was outnumbered, he was riding at the helm of the HMS Victory. And even though Nelson was shot soon after the battle started by a French musketeer, he led the British to victory. Lord Nelson refused to die until right before the battle was won. In 2024, the ship celebrated 246 years of continuous service. Scientists at the University of Southampton applied AI technology to thousands of images taken of the boat to help preserve its history. Right now, the ship is based at Portsmouth's historic dockyard. As part of a conservation scheme to keep the boat in tip-top shape, scientists are replacing some of its parts. For example, they are removing old and decaying planks and replacing them with new ones. This type of conservation work happens all the time, not just to legendary warships. Archaeologists are obsessed with keeping track of every little detail that changes during the work. It used to be that an archaeologist would add a description of every object that was changed, keeping a concise record of every nut and bolt. But now, scientists are using AI. The algorithm produces an accurate 3D model that stores all vital historical information. Instead of someone snooping around with a clipboard writing down part numbers, an AI program scans everything and catalogs it digitally. I know this isn't the first thing you think about when someone combines the words AI with archaeology, but it's just another way that AI technology is being used to keep track of human history. The AI smell machine is weirder than you think. What if instead of looking at artifacts in a museum, you could smell history itself? Scientists are trying to make this bizarre idea a reality by using an AI robot to recreate ancient smells. I never thought I'd see the day that scientists got together to build an AI with an electronic nose, but that is precisely what Project Odoropa is all about. In 2020, the scientists received almost $3.5 million in grant money to identify smells in historical texts, but only from as long ago as the 16th century. You won't be able to smell Cleopatra's perfume or a Roman bathhouse, but maybe a medieval monastery. To create a smell encyclopedia, scientists will use artificial intelligence to scan history books that are crammed with evidence of old smells. It seems crazy, but I'm kind of excited. Have you ever smelled an object that belonged to someone and instantly knew exactly what their house smelled like? Maybe it was a sweater, or maybe a book they lent you. Whatever it was, their odor was imprinted on it. You can now probably still smell it in your head. You don't forget those intense smells. And that's sort of the idea with the AI. Each 16th century book was written in a certain place by a certain person, and that place and that person left their smells on the book. While their smell has faded, evidence of it is still in the texts. The AI robot will scour millions of pages of text from hundreds of thousands of books. It can't physically smell the odors lingering in an old document, but it can find descriptions of smells in 7 languages. This robot has a stronger nose than a hunting dog. This will help create a catalog of what a particular place smelled like at any given time. For example, recreating what London smelled like in 1652 based on all smell-related descriptions written in books in London in 1652. That was a mouthful. Wait, do I really want to know what London smelled like in 1652? Once scientists have started to compile their smell encyclopedia, the information is going to be made available to chemists and perfumers. They can then recreate the ancient smells just like they would make any modern perfume. If you could get a nose full of one place at one specific point in time, which would you choose? Let me know in the comments.
Secrets from the Akkadian Empire. Did you know it took 23 years to decode Egyptian hieroglyphics using the Rosetta Stone? It seems like a long time until you realize that it took almost 200 years for scholars to decode Mayan glyphs. But wait, it took 3,000 years to decode Linear B, considered the earliest form of Greek writing. Now AI is translating languages in seconds. Akkadian cuneiform is one of the oldest written languages in the world. Can you guess how many people are left who can read Akkadian? I don't have an exact figure, but I can tell you that it's not many, which is a real bummer because there are still more than 1 million ancient Akkadian texts that need to be translated. There aren't enough scholars working full-time on translating ancient documents to decode all of them. It would take another 1,000 years at the rate we've been going to unlock all of the secrets of Mesopotamia. We don't have that kind of time. Yet again, artificial intelligence has come to the rescue. A group of computer science and history researchers created an AI model that can instantly translate Akkadian glyphs. Instead of one grizzled old librarian translating a single character at a time, AI can decode entire manuscripts while you're checking the weather on your phone. Believe it or not, the technology being used to translate Akkadian is the same tech allowing you to communicate with your non-English speaking friends on the internet. Google Translate. The scientific team was led by a Google software engineer and an expert in Assyrian history from Ariel University. The Akkadian Empire rose in what is currently Iraq in the 24th century BC, almost 4,500 years ago. They had their own spoken language and written language. Their cuneiform writing was all triangles and sharp wedges. I bet you didn't know that cuneiform itself means wedge-shaped in Latin. Be sure to tell your friends. Unfortunately, though, AI isn't all it's cracked up to be. It still makes mistakes. For example, when scientists tried to translate a line reading, "Why should we conduct the lawsuit before a man from Libya Ali?" the AI translated this as saying, "They are in the inner city, in the inner city." That's a pretty big error, or as AI technicians call it, a hallucination. Despite occasional errors, scientists say the tool will be saving thousands of human hours and processing texts. As Tom McCoy says, who is a computational linguist at Princeton University, AI is remarkable but still unreliable. It can translate Akkadian, but only if it's being double-checked by a human brain. So don't worry, you're not out of a job quite yet. Unknown human species found with AI. Artificial intelligence has gone beyond deciphering languages to deciphering human evolution itself. An entirely new human ancestor has been found in a groundbreaking study unlike anything that's been seen before. The footprint of an ancient hominid was found hiding inside the genome of people with Asian heritage. This extinct species, which crossbred with other human ancestors, was a mysterious hybrid. But a hybrid of what or who? Let's start at the beginning. A group of scientists from several institutions used machine learning technology to analyze almost a dozen leading models of human origin and evolution. The program, using AI, identified what scientists have called a ghost population of human ancestors. Spooky! In other words, a previously unknown group of hominins. They appear to have interbred with Homo sapiens in Asia at some point in time. I'm talking tens of thousands of years ago. They left behind only tiny traces of themselves in modern human DNA. But how did AI figure it all out? Because when the machine learning module was exposed to massive amounts of genomic data, it picked out pieces of information that human scientists missed. The genomic data included information from prehistoric fossilized bones and modern human DNA. The AI picked up on hints of a human species not outlined in the data. Scientists checked, and sure enough, there it was. A small sliver of a mysterious hybrid likely descended from Neanderthals and Denisovans. Talking ancient hominins can be a little confusing, even for scientists who study this stuff. What you need to know is that Homo sapiens were alive at the same time as two other major human species. There were Neanderthals, who primarily lived in Europe, and there were Denisovans, who primarily lived in Asia. There were other human species too, but these are the two that are most well known other than ourselves. It was only recently that scientists found the first known generational hybrid between these two other human species. A young girl was discovered in the Siberian cave. Her fossilized bones dated to 90,000 years ago. She is the only known example of a person born with a Neanderthal mother and a Denisovan father. What AI confirmed is what scientists have suspected. There was another hybrid species in the world, possibly part Neanderthal, part Denisovan, and part something altogether unknown. Hunting for lost shipwrecks. For centuries, ghost ships have haunted the ocean depths, their secrets lost to time. But a revolutionary new technology may soon unlock these long-lost chapters of maritime history. A computer has been taught how to recognize shipwrecks with a 92% accuracy. Marine archaeologists could be out of a job soon. Layla Character is a doctoral student in geography at the University of Texas. In collaboration with the Underwater Archaeology branch of the U.S. Navy, Layla designed a computer program that can recognize shipwrecks on the ocean floor without anyone having to go into the ocean. So how does that work? An aircraft or a boat can scan the ocean floor from above. Then the computer model pinpoints where shipwrecks are. Like I said, with a 92% accuracy rate. That's so incredible, it's almost unbelievable. So far, the project has focused on the coast of the US and Puerto Rico, but scientists say they are getting geared up to use the technology to find unmapped shipwrecks in deeper water. I'll give you the skinny on how a scientist goes about creating this type of computer model. Layla said the first step was to teach the computer what a shipwreck looks like. Layla taught the computer how to tell the difference between a shipwreck and the rough topography of the ocean floor. This was done by feeding images of shipwrecks into a computer. And where did they get those images? From the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which has a monster of a database. And it's totally open to the public, so feel free to browse. Layla's computer model has not yet led to any new discoveries, but just give it time. The program is very effective and ready to rock, so we'll have to be patient while it hunts for lost wrecks. But Layla's amazing AI program isn't the only one in the game. Cruising across the Atlantic Ocean to the depths of the Mediterranean Sea, scientists recently found a Roman shipwreck. Both the ship and its lost cargo are in fantastic condition, even though they are 2,000 years old. How cool is that? Researchers at the University of Patras named the wreck the Fiscardo, after the nearby Roman port of the same name. So far, it's the biggest shipwreck ever found in the area. It's still full of massive terracotta pots called amphorae, which it must have been transporting somewhere else. During the days of the Roman Empire, amphorae were used to transport things like wine, olive oil, and grain. They were all-purpose containers for just about anything. This wreck was found by using artificial intelligence. The scientists basically did it in two steps. First, they kind of zoomed around the seafloor with sonar, like taking a quick look to see if there was anything interesting down there. This was their reconnaissance phase, just getting a lay of the land. Then they use this fancy AI system that can spot things in images. It's like the AI has a superpowered eye that can analyze textures to figure out where something might be hiding. And guess what? It worked like a charm. The AI pinpointed the exact spot where this ancient Roman ship had been chilling with its cargo for the last 2,000 years. Unlocking an unknown language from 4,000 years ago. No human has been able to do it. It hasn't happened yet, but it's going to. AI is on the verge of deciphering a currently unknown language. The AI isn't just translating this language. It isn't determining whether the author was right-handed or left-handed. AI might truly crack open an unknown language from almost 2,000 years before Christ. Drum roll, please. The language is known as Linear A, and it dates as far back as 1800 BC. There are about 1,400 tablets with this ancient writing system on them. Despite countless attempts, centuries of research, and a lot of very tired scientists, not a single word of Linear A has ever been deciphered. I'm exhausted just thinking about it. If AI can do this, it might be the most amazing thing AI has ever done. Forget about winning art contests. This will be an achievement that no human being has ever accomplished. Let's take a deeper look at Linear A and the mysterious civilization who came up with the language. Most of the tablets have been found on the Greek island of Crete. It's believed the language was created by the Minoan civilization, who, by the way, may have been the real Atlanteans. The Minoans were, next to the Egyptians, likely the most developed civilization of the Bronze Age. They had unique art, advanced architecture, and built massive palace complexes so big they inspired legends of labyrinths and minotaurs. Scientists didn't even know about the Minoans until 1900. That was when the Palace of Knossos was excavated by archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans. Evans came up with the term Minoan, which is a reference to their legendary king Minos. Evans also figured out that the civilization disappeared around 1100 BC, seemingly wiped off the face of the earth, just like Atlantis. If AI can decipher linear A, it's going to be the biggest bombshell since Tutankhamun's tomb was uncovered. Just think of all the juicy secrets written on the tablets that could give us unimaginable insights into this lost civilization. I mean, look at everything that hieroglyphics have taught us about ancient Egypt. Just don't confuse linear A with linear B. Linear B was a more recent written language used by the Minoans, more closely related to Greek. Scientists cracked the linear B code in 1953, but are still stuck on linear A. MIT and Google's AI lab DeepMind have already used AI to automatically translate linear B, making it as easy to read now as Spanish or French. But linear A is in the works.
Artificial intelligence reads the impossible. Nobody plans to spend their week watching librarians and computer scientists team up like an ancient studies Avengers squad, but that's what happened when the world learned that a blackened, carbonized, completely unopenable scroll was read against all odds. Who doesn't want to watch the impossible unfold? The scroll is called P-Herc 172. That's what it was labeled way back when it was stuffed into a drawer by someone who never, ever in a million years thought the scroll would be read by anyone, and least of all a robot. Yet here we are, a burned scroll from 2,000 years ago that couldn't be opened with tweezers or read with a magnifying glass has been deciphered. And all it took was a particle accelerator blasting electrons at near light speeds and an AI model that doesn't know how to blink. And did I mention the scroll was incinerated during the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD? The same natural disaster that burned Pompeii to a crisp. It's true. This scroll comes straight from the city of Herculaneum. What a lot of people don't realize is that Mount Vesuvius did not merely erupt 2,000 years ago. It executed a full sweep of destruction with a pyroclastic flow so violent that all nearby cities were obliterated. And that includes the cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum, both of which were buried under deadly ash, gases, and debris. Thousands died in the disaster, their buildings singed, their belongings lost underneath a dark blanket of ash. During this horrible inferno, one person's library of tightly rolled papyrus scrolls got scorched, and in that library was P-Herc 172. The scroll got roasted, crushed, sealed under the volcanic aftermath, and turned into what essentially looked like a charcoal briquette. It never unrolled again because it couldn't. The roasted library had all kinds of similar scrolls in it, but all of them were untouchable, because the moment he touched one of these scrolls, it threatened to crumble into historical confetti. Eventually, scholars got the hint and stopped touching the scrolls, ultimately locking them away under the impression that no one would ever read them. But in 2024, AI changed history forever. P-Herc 172 was brought into the UK's National Synchrotron Research Lab, known as the Diamond Light Source. Pretty cool, huh? The machine there doesn't do gentle science. It does seriously aggressive science. You know how there's passive driving and aggressive driving? This is the latter. The Diamond Light Source accelerates electrons to almost the speed of light and produces a beam of illumination measured in units I can hardly fathom. It's not measured in normal brightness, not even in the jacked-up truck aftermarket headlight brightness. This thing measures in brightness levels 10 billion times brighter than the light from the sun. Safe to say, you can't buy this kind of machine at Best Buy. For some perspective, hospitals use X-ray machines. The synchrotron is roughly 100 billion times brighter than an X-ray machine. This is not light meant for finding bone fractures. This is light that can slip between layers of a scroll that can't be opened and reveal the ghostly difference between carbonized papyrus and ancient ink. Through those scans, scroll P-Herc 172 began to show itself. Faint strokes appeared, subtle ridges, and hints of symbols that hadn't been seen by human eyes since before the Roman Empire lost its footing. But light alone wasn't enough. To decode this ancient scroll, the UK's particle accelerator had to call for backup. Enter the Vesuvius Challenge, an AI-based competition with a dream that would have been science fiction 20 years ago, heck, 5 years ago. The competition was to see who could decipher scrolls that nobody can physically touch. Computer scientists teamed up with Bodleian libraries and applied machine learning tools to the challenge. These tools were designed to detect ink that the human eye can't distinguish from the carbonized papyrus background. Let me try to explain it a little better. Imagine a piece of bread. It's fluffy and white before you put it into your Star Wars toaster that your girlfriend has tried to throw in the trash twice. Now you write on the bread with a black marker. It's clear and easy to read until you put the bread in the toaster. When it comes out blackened and crisp, you can't tell what's marker ink and what's burnt toast. It's the same thing with the scroll. Scientists couldn't tell the ink from what was burned papyrus, but their machine learning tools were catching on quickly. The AI did not understand Greek, which the scroll was written in. To be fair though, the AI couldn't read at all, but it could stare at pixel-level variations until it spotted ink patterns buried deep inside the virtual slices of the scroll, and that's what it did. The AI digitally mined the ink while humans decoded the Greek, and then came the breakthrough. The Greek letters started to form Greek words. Slowly but surely, words like foolish and fear and disgust became legible for the first time in 2 millennia. And with some pretty obviously negative words like that, scientists started to get concerned. What the heck were they bringing back to life by decoding this scroll? Scholars kept up the decoding until something clicked. That something was the author's voice. The scientists recognized something familiar in the handwriting and the vocabulary. The scroll style matched other works attributed to Philodemus of Gadara, a philosopher/poet whose surviving texts form some of the richest windows into ancient thought. The word foolish is actually one of the most common words used in Philodemus's work. He uses it constantly, like someone who doesn't know how many times to actually say actually in a 5-minute window. The flow, the word repetition, the style, it screams Philodemus. So this went from a random book by a random author that no one would ever be able to read to suddenly IDing the man who wrote it, and he's already a famous ancient scribe. It doesn't get any better than this. Unfortunately though, AI can currently only do so much. There's no full translation and there isn't even any real context yet. The AI has basically spat up word soup. Lots of words, little meaning. Still, for a scroll believed unreadable since its entombment, even a single confirmed word is a celebration. A cluster of words is a revelation, and this is just the beginning. As AI improves and scientists figure out how to better implement the technology, you'll be seeing more translations like this, but better. Archaeology's digital revolution. Picture, if you will, a windswept alpine ridge so high up you'd expect to meet either a mountain goat or the abominable snowman before meeting a Roman. Now, imagine researchers from the University of Basel hiking through that ridge with nothing but scientific determination and some tech. Then 2023 came and the previous 2 years of hard work paid off big time. Since 2021, this team has been surveying the Krapsess region of the Swiss Alps, and no, I did not make that up, looking for traces of a Roman battlefield tucked somewhere in eastern Switzerland's Oberhalbstein mountain range. The mission was ambitious, the terrain uncooperative, and the altitude dizzying. I'll just say that 7,000 feet of vertical judgment is enough to make anyone consider a career in indoor archaeology. A digital terrain model, powered by LiDAR and tuned to detect even tiny height differences, was put into the hands of the researchers. This is some serious technology. If most archaeologists are working with pistols, this thing was a bazooka. When archaeologists flipped the switch, the digital terrain model revealed an unexpected shape nearly 3,000 feet above the battlefield they were studying. This was no random bump or a glacial scar. It was the unmistakable structure of a Roman military camp that had been sitting in the clouds for over 2,000 years. Talk about luck! This team of scientists climbed the mountains to study an ancient frozen battlefield and then found a military camp 3,000 feet above the battlefield. I can't even think of what to compare it to. It's that weird. Weird, but also awesome. This is what's becoming of archaeology. It's entering its renaissance phase with technology that the old boys like Howard Carter wouldn't even have understood if you gave them a blueprint. Archaeology used to be all brushes and machetes and afternoons lying face down in the dirt to identify half a pottery shard. And that is still part of the job, don't get me wrong. No algorithm has yet been invented to replace the peculiar joy of manually scraping soil from the past. Though I will admit that in Pompeii, scientists did use a robot to help piece together fragments of destroyed Roman frescoes. So maybe we aren't as far away from robot archaeologists as the experts think. Robots aside, the general toolkit has expanded dramatically for scientists in all fields, but especially for archaeologists. They really went from brushes to laser-mounted drones in a few years. At least scientists like astronomers have been working with telescopes this whole time. They just keep getting better. But for archaeologists, the jump has been from Stone Age to nuclear age. You've got LiDAR, AI, machine learning, satellite imagery, DNA sequencing, thermal drones, tiny robots that crawl through tomb shafts like ambitious mechanical beetles. Modern archaeology has become a collaboration between ancient mysteries and technology so advanced it occasionally borders on overkill. Across the world from those misty Swiss heights lies the Rub al-Khali, better known as the Empty Quarter, a name that tells you everything about its personality. It is the largest continuous sand desert in the world, covering 250,000 square miles of blistering dunes across the Arabian Peninsula. The Empty Quarter includes parts of the UAE, Oman, Yemen, and Saudi Arabia. It is also surprisingly crowded. Not with people, as you can literally drive 100 miles without seeing a soul. No, the Empty Quarter is crowded with secrets. And those secrets are buried under dunes that shift like an indecisive ocean. So in 2023, scientists broke out the technology. An Austrian-German expedition crossed the Saudi Arabian side of this desert on a 1,500-mile journey. They passed through areas that were still unmapped, which in the 2020s is kind of insane. I kind of thought Google's Street View car had been everywhere by now, even the world's biggest sand desert. But apparently, much to my delight, there are still unmapped places in the world to explore. Their mission was to find traces of human civilization in this giant sandbox. They blended boots-on-the-ground exploration with technology. One of their greatest assets was developed by researchers at Khalifa University. They created a machine learning algorithm trained on synthetic aperture radar, or SAR for short. SAR is like X-ray vision for landscapes. It can peer through vegetation and even sand. Since traditional surveys in the Empty Quarter are nearly impossible, this technology allowed the team to detect hidden structures and analyze areas surrounding Saruq al-Hadid, a site linked to more than 5,000 years of human activity. Expeditions like this are changing history. Before SAR, archaeologists would have had to dig random holes and random sand dunes until they found a structure. But now, they can use SAR to scan beneath the sand dunes. Okay, so that Roman military camp in the mountains is allowing scientists to trace the advancing Roman forces, therefore changing the way historians see Roman military conquest. And it's all thanks to technology. While in the Middle East, scientists are now finding 5,000 years of history buried under sand dunes like that one flip-flop you lost at the beach and are never ever going to find. What else is technology doing? In Peru, AI is finding more Nazca lines. I did an in-depth video on the Nazca lines very recently, so be sure to watch it if you want a more in-depth look at what's happening in Peru. The short and sweet of it is that for nearly a century since the Nazca lines were found in the 1920s, only 430 new geoglyphs were found. Humans searched, and they only found 430 in 100 years. Then someone handed the job to artificial intelligence. In just 6 months, using low-flying drones and AI trained to sift through enormous amounts of imagery, researchers identified 303 previously unknown geoglyphs. The algorithm filtered out 98% of irrelevant visual noise, leaving a much smaller list for human experts to confirm or reject. In other words, AI handled the grunt work while people handled the judgment calls. It's like getting AI to build your dating profile, swipe for you, and send the first message, leaving you free to chat without having to do all the hard work. So that's 3 continents and 3 times technology has changed history, and I've only cherry-picked my favorite examples. There are dozens of examples of new technology blowing the lid open on old mysteries. Here's one of the first big cases of history being changed through technology. In 2017, which is almost 10 years ago if you want to feel ancient, scientists turned on the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory's particle accelerator and fired X-ray beams straight through fragments of Roman concrete. Why would anyone X-ray concrete? Because scientists wanted to figure out why ancient structures have survived empire collapses, storms, wars, and the eternal determination of tourists to scratch their names on old stones. It wasn't AI in the flashy sci-fi sense, but it was still a perfect example of the new mindset, which is to use every tool available, no matter how advanced, to answer the oldest possible questions. In the case of Roman concrete, blasting samples with X-rays revealed clues that would help scientists recreate the original recipe for Roman concrete. Buildings built by the Romans have survived over 2,000 years without falling over, while structures we erect in this age tend to tip over a lot faster than that. Why was Roman concrete more effective than modern concrete? The test showed it was made from volcanic ash, lime, and one secret but really simple ingredient. That secret ingredient was seawater. Once scientists figured that out, it was just a matter of reformulating the recipe to try and use Roman concrete in modern applications. Almost 10 years later, scientists are using what they learned to strengthen modern concrete. Maybe the study didn't change history, but it did help construction workers employ ancient techniques to make their current techniques even better. But wait! The digital revolution didn't stop at stones and soil. It seeped into biology, giving archaeologists new eyes for examining the past living world. A 2018 genomic study traced medieval European walrus ivory back to animals living in Greenland's Arctic waters. They use a technique known as genetic fingerprinting to learn where the ivory came from. It was being sold in Europe, but apparently procured in Greenland. And who do you suppose was procuring all this walrus ivory? Undoubtedly, it was the Norse. More specifically, the branch of Norsemen who left Scandinavia, tried their luck in Greenland, and eventually disappeared. Thanks to this information, scientists were able to deduce that the Norse were likely engaging in trade with the Thule Inuit, which is astounding all by itself. The genomic study revealed a glimpse of early circumpolar trade that nobody knew about. You've heard of the Silk Road, but what about the Polar Road? The Norse and the Inuit may have had their own complex trading network. If you ask me, this technological revolution could not have come at a better time. Critical archaeological sites across the planet are being threatened by development, deforestation, looting, climate change, and the simple, unstoppable passage of time. Archaeologists today are working with a sense of urgency. Having tools that allow them to work at significantly faster speeds means they might learn important pieces of history before it is burned, drowned, or blown up with TNT. The job has changed, the stakes have changed, but the goal hasn't. Now let's hit up the Amazon jungle and see what OpenAI is up to. The OpenAI race to unveil the Amazon. Archaeologists have always battled time, but in the Amazon rainforest, the fight is almost mythical. Tens of thousands of potential archaeological sites may lie tucked beneath millions of square miles of dense canopy. There are stone tools, rock paintings, and remnants of civilizations as old as 13,000 years. But the very scale that protects these mysteries also makes them nearly impossible to find. The Amazon jungle sprawls across 9 countries, shelters hundreds of indigenous communities, and resists most attempts at ground surveys. It is disappearing and evolving faster than researchers can keep up. In a desperate attempt to study the world's greatest jungle before it's one giant rubber plantation, scientists are turning to artificial intelligence. And OpenAI is the middleman no one saw coming. Welcome to the OpenAI to Z Challenge, a public competition with a clever name judged by archaeologists Sarah Parcak and Chris Fisher. If the name Parcak sounds familiar, it should. Sarah is a renowned space archaeologist, famous for making amazing discoveries using satellites. She and Chris asked participants of the competition to sift through enormous volumes of satellite imagery and remote sensing data. They were searching for signs of ancient human activity. The team that won didn't just participate, they kicked butt. The winning team was a 3-person group called Blackbean. Their AI models flagged 67 distinct square-mile patches of the Amazon as promising leads for where to find ancient ruins. Now, that's pretty good. If even a fraction of those zones reveal archaeological treasures, it could redirect years of exploration. What took an AI program half a second will take real humans decades to confirm on the ground. But it's the way the team did it that has everyone excited. In fact, I'd say experts are more excited by the how than the what. I mean, sure, lost cities are cool, but did you see that AI in action? Instead of looking at old maps, reading old Spanish chronicles, or deciphering weird old legends passed down from guys like Percy Fawcett, Blackbean used AI and satellite images, and that was it. They didn't even need to take the images themselves. Using publicly available satellite images, LiDAR scans, elevation data from NASA, and digital terrain visuals from Google Earth Engine, the Blackbean team trained deep learning models to detect patterns that match the signatures of known archaeological sites. Once the model learned what an ancient settlement might look like from above, it began scanning unexplored areas for similar indicators. The program revealed the 67 most likely spots where lost cities are hiding. This is the exact thing that AI should be being used for, not replacing artists, writers, and me. But the story isn't just about impressive algorithms uncovering ancient landscapes. It's also about ethics, indigenous stewardship, and the uncertain path ahead for a field caught between shrinking resources and powerful new tools. Researchers have long suspected that the Amazon holds far more archaeological secrets than have been documented. And in the past few years, those suspicions have been confirmed through multiple studies, including LiDAR surveys that I've discussed repeatedly here on Origins Explained. Even with drones, field expeditions, and traditional remote sensing, the Amazon is still too expansive for archaeologists to walk, scan, or excavate comprehensively, which is why this contest was so important. You're probably wondering what the prize was, aren't you? If I told you the prize was unlimited OpenAI credits, would you throw a shoe at me? Okay, because the prize was $250,000 plus OpenAI premium credits. Going forward, the Blackbean team has no immediate plans to visit the 67 identified regions. To be blunt, no one has any plans to visit any of the sites, which kind of makes me wonder what the point was. Archaeologists said that any future step would involve very careful consideration of how not to interrupt the humanity in the area. A lot of people are worried about the impact excavations might have on people living in the jungle. I mean, true, you can't just dig wherever you want. After OpenAI launched the competition, critics noted that indigenous groups in the Amazon had not been consulted, even though the models scanned data from regions near their homes and historic territories. Brazil's indigenous ministry demanded that the competition be paused until OpenAI clarified its goals. But then, a spokesperson told National Geographic that all datasets were already public and that the company was complying with local laws. I mean, illegal loggers and miners and all these other groups destroying the Amazon have the same access to all of this information, and they aren't consulting anybody. But herein lies the problem. The Blackbean team may have found almost 100 potential sites of lost cities, temples, and cracked pyramids, but they can't barge in uninvited. One of those 67 spots could even be the lost city of Z from legend. But the team can't just show up to any part of the jungle they want, especially not if the area is home to tribespeople. Remember, the scientists didn't go to these places, they scanned images of them taken from the sky. So all they can really do at this point is share their findings with archaeologists, allowing experts with training and local community partnerships to take the lead. But in case you missed all the excitement, there will be more contests. Sarah Parcak and Chris Fisher expect that more private companies like OpenAI will sponsor similar competitions as federal funding for archaeology declines. There is a sad trend right now of heritage organizations losing their funding all over the world. What does it mean when Silicon Valley becomes the patron of historical exploration? What happens when the money to dig up ruins comes from tech giants whose goals may not be entirely clear? Let me know your thoughts. I love to hear them in the comments. Unlocking the secrets of the green gemstones. There are scientific projects that feel like detective novels, others that feel like laboratory marathons, and then there is this. It's a massive collaboration between archaeologists, mineral specialists, and artificial intelligence researchers trying to track the ancient travels of a brilliant green stone. It is, without a doubt, one of the stranger scientific projects in recent memory. The brilliant green stone isn't jade or emerald. I'll save you the hassle. It's called variscite, a mineral prized in prehistory for necklaces, bracelets, and rings. If diamonds are the gold standard of jewels today, variscite was the diamond of 8,000 years ago. It's kind of crazy to think about that humans were obsessing over accessorizing before they even figured out written language. Did we just evolve as the vainest creatures in the solar system? What is our attraction to dressing ourselves in shiny stones? Anywho, variscite's green glow once moved through Western Europe in exchange networks stretching across centuries, probably starting in the 6th millennium BC. For the first time ever, a team of scientists from Spain and Portugal has built a way to follow the long-lost routes on which the green gems traveled. Turns out, gemstones were a seriously hot commodity. Maybe even the original commodity, predating salt, sugar, tea, and everything except maybe volcanic glass. To reach their breakthrough, scientists mixed non-destructive archaeological measurements, machine learning, and artificial intelligence into a single system, one designed to identify precisely where any archaeological piece of variscite originally came from. Let's say you find a green gemstone in Poland. You put it into the scientist system, and the system tells you where in Europe it came from and how it got to Poland. That's like package tracking turned up to 99. Imagine if you could track your Amazon package's individual components and trace their origins. That's sort of the deal here. And trust me, it was no easy feat getting to this point. The researchers spent many years playing a scientific game of where did this sparkle come from? Every archaeological site that contains variscite offers clues as to where it came from. At the same time, geological veins of the mineral differ subtly from region to region, and those subtle regional differences, typically small chemical variations, are their fingerprints. The group's strategy sounds simple, but requires tremendous patience to pull it off. They collect geological samples from known variscite sources, analyze their chemical makeup, and compare them to the composition of archaeological beads and ornaments. If the chemistry matches, the provenance emerges. So say that green gemstone from Poland was an ancient necklace 7,000 years old. Scientists can now take the stone in the necklace, analyze its makeup, and link it to an actual vein of variscite in the ground. It's pretty cool, but it's even cooler once you realize how massive this project was. The study, published in the Journal of Archaeological Science, united the University of Lisbon, the Milan Fontanals Institution for Research in the Humanities, the University of Seville, the University of Alcalá, and the list goes on and on and on. Together, they assembled the most extensive variscite compositional database ever created. The database contains more than 1,800 geological samples and 571 archaeological objects, all analyzed using portable X-ray fluorescence. The X-ray fluorescence instrument works without destroying or cutting into artifacts, and that's a crucial detail because nobody wants to damage a bead that has survived since before the last mammoth died. With this mountain of data in hand, the scientists fed it into a random forest algorithm, a machine learning approach beloved for its accuracy and versatility. The model began to learn immediately. Before long, the team had something unprecedented. They had created an AI capable of predicting the geological origin of prehistoric variscite artifacts with about 95% accuracy. That's huge. That's a solid A+. The team gets bonus points for building a powerful model that is also completely open. All the compositional data is publicly available on Zenodo, an open repository operated under the European Open Air Program and managed by CERN. The openness matters because now any researcher can test, extend, or reinterpret the findings. It's collaborative archaeology at its most transparent. The team didn't find a lost civilization or a sunken city. What they did was something completely new and unique. They used AI and sophisticated analyzation techniques to create a database that can track every single ancient artifact of one type of stone. Imagine what else can be done with this technology. What if every single copper artifact can suddenly be traced back to where it was mined? What if every gemstone can be connected to the ancients who pulled it out of the ground and forged it into something beautiful? When that day comes, it's going to be huge. Scientists are going to be tracing gold trinkets found in Constantinople back to the gold fields of Africa. This technology has the potential to open up ancient trading routes in a way that has never been done before. The good news is that archaeological interpretation demands transparency, which is why the team relied on explainable artificial intelligence, a new breed of AI. These tools always reveal why the algorithm made each decision. It essentially has to show its work, which is a big deal for scientists. Carlos Odriozola, professor at the University of Seville, emphasized that clarity is the point. The system doesn't simply deliver an answer, it shows which chemical elements were decisive in each classification. For archaeologists, this transforms AI from a black box into a methodological ally. And this will be key going forward as AI begins to play an even greater role in archaeology, which, as you've seen today, is already in the process of happening. I wouldn't be surprised to see a robot digging up an Egyptian tomb by 2032. With this model in place, the team must now wrestle with questions that AI can't answer, like why did this green stone spread so widely across Western Europe? Why did people love it so much? Where did the phenomenon begin? And what significance did the gemstone have for the ancients? If you have any ideas, let me know in the comments. The world's greatest archaeological puzzle. Welcome to one of the greatest puzzles in the world, and we are this close to solving it. South of Lima, across the desert, the Nazca people once walked out onto the plains, got down to the ground, and started carving out enormous images. They were so large that they couldn't even see the full picture when they stood up. These images were meant to be seen from the air and not from the ground at all. No human would see what these images looked like in their final form until airplanes came about. Pilots reported mysterious lines, but no one bothered to investigate until Maria Reka came around. More about her in a bit. The Nazca carved all kinds of things from spirals to birds, monkeys, whales, stars, giant trapezoids, and scenes of human sacrifice. These were elaborate lines that stretched for miles. For more than a century, archaeologists and historians have tried to understand what they all mean. It's one of archaeology's most stubborn mysteries. Why would people who couldn't fly make art that could only be seen from the sky? That is the big question. There are countless theories, of course. People have claimed the Nazca lines are part of an astronomical calendar, that they were ritual walkways or signposts to water. To me, the clearest answer is that they weren't meant to be seen by us. These enormous works were meant to be seen by the gods. Others might say they were for alien visitors. In fact, one of the most popular theories shared by ancient aliens is that the Nazca people didn't meet aliens, but they saw them in the sky. They saw their UFOs, understood that they were being watched by something, and made the Nazca lines as an attempt at communication. Whether it's a crazy theory or not, that's for you to decide. In modern times, humans beam radio waves into space in an attempt to talk with aliens. It might not be so different. We have always been trying to communicate with something larger than ourselves up in the sky since the dawn of humanity, whether they be gods or aliens. And now we humans are using our clever technology to get even closer to those ancient artists. The Nazca people would have never imagined that in 2,000 years, scientists would be studying their drawings using artificial intelligence. But that's exactly what's happening, and has been happening already, for years. To understand why AI has been brought into the fray, you have to appreciate how the Nazca lines survived long enough to become one of Earth's most spectacular puzzles. It started with the original Nazca builders, Around 500 BC and even earlier, someone brushed away the dark, oxidized gravel of the desert floor to expose the pale subsoil underneath, realizing it made quite a striking image. Then it became more organized. They would use stakes and cords to map out these enormous figures and then remove the dark earth on the surface. Easy peasy. Up until around 650 AD, this was the go-to method for building the Nazca lines, and they made a lot of them. The desert helped preserve the Nazca artists' work. The dry climate, light winds, and soil sticky with gypsum made sure that every stone stayed exactly where it was placed, like a naturally occurring archaeological glue stick. Researchers like Mariana marveled at the perfect proportions of the lines, hinting that the Nazca may have used ancient measurement tools to plan designs with mathematical care. The result of their craftsmanship were images the size of neighborhoods, etched into the ground with no drones, no satellites, no apps, and no aerial perspective. They knew how to complete a picture the size of a city without being able to see from the top down. They were basically working blind. How did they do it? I wish I knew. By the mid-20th century, planes revealed the full scale of the drawings. From above, the desert transforms into a sprawling graphic novel of ancient intentions. Paul Kossak and Maria Reika floated the idea of a giant astronomical calendar, saying the images were not separate but part of the same giant schedule. It was an elegant explanation that eventually got debunked, though not without inspiring half a century of debate and heaps of conspiracy theories. One of the major problems with studying the Nazca lines is their size. Humans can't scrutinize a region that stretches roughly 175 square miles at the level of detail needed to find every hidden figure. Satellite data, photogrammetry, and drone imagery help, but manually scanning all of it is slow. Painfully slow. Like checking every grain of sand in the desert. But luckily, AI is now a thing. In 2025, 248 new geoglyphs were found thanks to an international team from Yamagata University, IBM, and Peruvian researchers. These scientists got together with a novel idea. Stop sifting through the dirt for signs of glyphs and hire a robot to do it. Of course, the scientists didn't send an actual robot into the desert, although that would have been awesome. They used an AI program to scan thousands of aerial photographs and locate glyphs invisible to the human eye. It was like feeding an AI program every single Where's Waldo that's ever been. The result was exactly what the team had hoped for. The AI pinpointed hundreds of new glyphs that human eyes had missed, resulting in a rapid expansion of one of archaeology's most iconic puzzles. The latest haul includes 160 figurative motifs, a variety of people, animals, and symbolic scenes. It also includes 88 geometric shapes, each one carved into the desert floor at least 2,000 years ago. Among the most unsettling new finds is a sequence of 4 geoglyphs depicting human sacrifice. This is nuts. Usually the Nazca lines are nothing but actual lines, like overlapping highways. There are plants and animals too, and symbols most likely from their religion. But sacrifice is something new. There is now a Nazca line of a priest carrying a severed human head. That is not a doodle. That is a deliberate transmission from a civilization that used the desert as a canvas for spiritual, ritual, and collective memory. Most scholars agree the Nazca lines were the ancient Nazca's way of immortalizing their culture. The Atlanteans had the Hall of Records under the Sphinx, maybe. The Egyptians had the Library of Alexandria. You've got Wikipedia. And the Nazca had their lines. Every culture needs somewhere to store the history of who they are. Masato Sakai, the archaeologist leading the project, stressed that the geoglyphs' placement is just as meaningful as what they represent. Many of the glyphs sit beside ancient pathways, suggesting the figures weren't just decorative. Some think they were ritual stations, or perhaps a kind of sacred travelogue marking themes meaningful to the Nazca people. In their world, walking a path meant walking through stories. Perhaps each glyph is a myth, and modern people simply don't know the tales. But the Nazca did, and they recognized each and every symbol they walked past. When scientists first took the Nazca line seriously in 1927, they had no idea they were staring at a bottomless archive. Aerial photography in the 1940s bumped things forward, but not by much. Only 112 figures were identified. High-resolution satellite imagery arrived in 2004, accelerating the pace and revealing 318 new figures by 2020. It was progress, but the kind that felt like brushing sand off a boulder with a toothbrush. Then AI entered the chat. In 2022, the Yamagata IBM team uncovered 168 additional geoglyphs, signaling that the old pace was about to look laughable in hindsight. The previous century-long tally sat at 430 geoglyphs, discovered at an average of 1.5 per year between 1940 and 2000. High-res imagery pushed that to 18.7 glyphs per year. It's cool to see the numbers broken down like this, right? With nothing but shovels and brushes, work is pretty slow. Then satellites boosted it by a massive margin. And now, the current AI-driven method is working 16 times faster than anything before it. What took humans the better part of a century, AI now does between coffee breaks. Each new discovery expands the Nazca story, with nearly 900 figures now cataloged and more surely lurking beneath the surface, and probably more discovered since I made this video. The Nazca Desert is coming alive. Let's look at one of the glyphs more closely. The Great Big Cat. Instead of looking at the big picture, at the hundreds of geoglyphs found in the Nazca Desert, let's check out one in particular. It's new, it's huge, and it's a cat. Not a paw print, not a modest sketch, a stretched-out, hillside-hugging feline that looks like it fell asleep mid-pose sometime around 2,000 years ago. How nobody saw the kitty until now is beyond me. It's over 100 feet long. 121 to be exact. From above, the animal's shape is painfully obvious. In a plane, you can look down and see its long body, outlined ears, and unmistakable feline attitude. If ancient artists had Instagram, this cat would have had an enormous following. It's impressive and super old. Scientists have estimated the giant feline dates to about 200 BC, and that makes things a little complicated, because while we call them the Nazca lines, the truth is that the Nazca weren't the only ones designing here. The Nazca appeared in the region by the year 300 BC. Before them was the Paracas culture. They were an earlier group from around the coast who were already producing feline imagery long before the Nazca ever thought to rake rocks into gigantic shapes. In fact, the Paracas culture made lots of geoglyphs, and they are interspersed with the ones made by the Nazca. You and I might not be able to instantly tell them apart, but the experts can. The Nazca's geoglyphs are a little fresher, a little more in sync, while the aesthetic of the Paracas designs is slightly off. It's a technique that feels older, with the overall style resembling something distinctly not Nazca. Chief archaeologist Johnny Isla explained that the Paracas people loved depicting three things. They liked birds, people, and cats. Don't ask me why, they just did, but you know. They loved making glyphs of birds and felines, so the fact that the giant cat on the hillside dates to the Paracas era and boasts their unique techniques makes it safe to say the Paracas are responsible. Which means it isn't even a Nazca line, and unfortunately, it's badly damaged. The Ministry of Culture admitted the geoglyph wasn't in the best shape. Time had not been kind to it. Its position on a steep slope meant that gravity had been eroding it grain by grain, like an hourglass made specifically to annoy archaeologists. Just like the Nazca, the Paracas made their designs by brushing darker volcanic stones aside to reveal lighter sand beneath. But for whatever reason, it seems the Paracas weren't as good at it as the Nazca. Their glyphs are so fragile, often a single gust of wind can make parts of a line disappear forever. This means the cat figure is incredibly lucky. It survived 2,000 years of erosion only to be discovered right when technology could document it in seconds. It was a moment of alignment between history and drones, and just in the nick of time. Scientists doubt the feline glyph will last much longer on its own. And that's got me wondering, how many Paracas lines have already been lost forever? How many other giant cats and freakishly large birds have been washed away by the wind? If I had to guess, I'd say at least one minimum. And archaeologist Johnny Isla agrees with me. It might seem surprising that new designs are still being found, he said, but we know there are more out there. And they are going to be found faster than ever, thanks to drones, satellites, and AI. The rise of drones is a quiet revolution in archaeology. Hillsides once impossible to properly survey now reveal shapes that no one thought to look for. Drones can sweep across surfaces where human eyes lack perspective, or where the contours distort everything from ground level. Plus, they can reach places that humans can't. Want to scale a sheer wall of stone to look for a ruin and possibly fall to your doom? Or do you want to sit back with a beverage while your drone does it for you? Now, let's move on from cats to aliens because that is the next logical step. Ancient runways, the Nazca take flight. Across the Nazca Desert, the ground is a canvas, and the canvas is confusing. After decades of study, archaeologists understand how the Nazca lines were carved, but the question of why continues to float above the desert like a brittle-shaped cloud. Some researchers suggest the answer lies in fertility rituals tied to water. Others, with equal confidence, insist the long straight lines are ancient runways, not for airplanes, but for spaceships. There is a popular theory growing more popular by the day that the Nazca Desert once functioned as a spaceport, complete with runways marked by weird images of cats and monkeys. Is it possible? Technically. Is the evidence convincing? Let's see. The Nazca geoglyphs come in all flavors, as you've already seen. I've mentioned monkeys a bunch of times. You've seen the giant cat, and there are many abstract forms. You know, like a runway. This is one group. Animals, geometric symbols, abstract forms, one group. There's one more group in the Nazca Desert that is often overlooked. Found alongside these complex shapes and pictures are straight lines. Straight as an arrow, unapologetically long, perfectly linear, and sometimes carved at the tops of hills only to stop dramatically at the edge of a cliff. These abrupt cliffside endings have invited speculation from fringe theorists who see more than lines. They see an alien vehicle booming down the runway and taking flight just as it's about to fall off the edge of a cliff. They see airstrips. They see launch platforms. They see incredibly advanced technology that the Nazca couldn't possibly have had access to. So, what's the deal? Two groups keep the runway theory alive. Those who believe the Nazca lines were designed by extraterrestrials, and those who believe the Nazca people themselves had flight technology. Two sides of the same fringe coin. Both camps love one shiny piece of evidence known as the Tolima gold artifacts. These are small, ancient figurines that resemble little jet planes. They look like the Nazca's version of Hot Wheels, little doodads that could be airplanes or spaceships or insects, depending on how hard you squint. To the believers, these figurines are proof of ancient aerospace engineering, proof that the Nazca could fly. But honestly, I'm having a hard time believing a civilization with stone tools and adobe houses were building components for the aerospace industry. It just doesn't make sense. Plus, the Tolima figurines aren't even from Peru. They're from Colombia. I've seen them in person. Maybe they had gliders. I could see ancient humans making a glider and leaping off a cliff with it. What an adrenaline rush that would be. I mean, they could have used wood and leather to make one. I'm sure that's a possibility. Because the trouble begins when you ask for additional proof of advanced technology. Outside of the Tolima artifacts and the runway-esque patterns of some Nazca lines, there isn't a thing to prove the Nazca were engineering space-age materials. And if you accept that the Nazca were visited by aliens, you've got to deal with the chilling absence of proof of that too. You would think there would be broken alien alloys, abandoned spacecraft parts, or signs of scorch marks where rockets might have landed, or anything not native to Earth. But so far, nothing like that has appeared. To be perfectly blunt, because you know I'm always going to try to be real with you, the Nazca lines themselves contradict the alien runway theory. I love the theory. I think it's awesome. It's fun, exciting, and just realistic enough to hold out hope for. But And this is a huge but. The Nazca lines disprove it. The lines themselves were made by delicately removing the topsoil. Have you ever seen a spaceship take off from Kennedy Center? It's an explosive mess. A spacecraft landing in the Nazca Desert, alien or otherwise, would leave a chaos of displaced gravel while probably destroying the lines. One takeoff and there would be nothing left. The only reason the lines are still around is because the Nazca Desert is some sort of weird no-wind zone with gusts barely strong enough to move a candy wrapper. Then again, I suppose aliens could have some sort of anti-gravity technology that allows them to land without blowing dirt around. But if that's the case, why would they even need a runway? Every time you think you've got a solution, another question pops up. For example, once you decide the Nazca didn't have advanced technology, you learn about the tool glyphs. There are mechanical geoglyphs in the Nazca Desert that no one can explain. These are designs that look like hooks, windmills, and machines. At least that's been our interpretation of the glyphs. The problem, as archaeologists often remind the public, is that humans bring their own modern biases to ancient art. Something that looks mechanical to me doesn't automatically imply mechanics. Just because I see a crane doesn't mean that's what it is. The Nazca geoglyph, sometimes described as a windmill, is a perfect example of misinterpretation by modern imagination. Specialists have identified the glyph as a flower, one of several stylistic variations used within Nazca art. But fringe scientists insist the Nazca would have drawn a better flower if that's what they meant. They insist the glyph is a windmill. So, who is correct? Unfortunately for the fringe folks, the argument crumbles under a simple comparison. Put the windmill next to other Nazca flower designs and the resemblance becomes obvious. Some flowers were drawn more realistically, while others lean toward abstraction. And that's the whole point I'm trying to make here. What you see as a hook or a machine part could have been nothing but an abstract frog made by an artist 2,000 years ago. Archaeologists deal with this all the time. For example, early hominids used tools we call hand axes, despite no solid evidence that they were used as axes or even held by hand. They simply resemble an object in our culture, an axe. So that's what we've chosen to believe they are. The Nazca likely weren't designing turbines or mechanical hooks. They were representing the world they saw through plants, animals, and symbols. And the cold, hard fact is that a startling number of straight lines appear in human history. People used them as roads, as borders, as paths for rituals, as art. Calling any long and straight line a runway is like calling any circle a portal, which, I like it. The Nazca straight lines, impressive as they are, do not automatically signify aviation. They could have served symbolic, ritualistic, astronomical, or ceremonial purposes, or purposes we haven't even guessed yet. But a lack of hangars, crash remains, mechanical parts, or supporting infrastructure makes it difficult to argue that these were functional airstrips. The idea is interesting, but the evidence is not really pointing that direction. What do you think, though? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Peru shrinks Nazca protections. The Nazca Desert has never been subtle. 2,000 years ago, its people carved enormous spiders, condors, llamas, killer whales brandishing weapons, and even severed human heads across the desert floor. These were messages meant for the sky, for gods, for aliens, whoever's up there, who can say? But they were definitely meant for something. Today, the desert still speaks to us. We are still finding the messages left behind by the Nazca people, but sadly, these discoveries might be about to end. Peru has decided to take its protection of its most famous site next to Machu Picchu and throw it in the garbage. Peru is cutting nearly half of the protected land around the Nazca lines loose, leaving an area the size of 1,400 soccer fields vulnerable to mining interests that have already begun knocking at the door. Basically, Peru is letting miners go into the Nazca Desert and mine materials over what was once a protected heritage zone. The Nazca lines, designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1994, have long been one of Peru's most iconic attractions. I remember learning about the Nazca lines as a kid. It was one of the first ancient mysteries that I really got interested in, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm also sure I'm not the only one devastated by this news. The country's recent decision to slash the borders of the archaeological park has left environmentalists, archaeologists, and cultural advocates sounding alarms louder than any desert wind. The Associated Press reports that the reduction places unprotected land directly in the path of mining pressure. For critics, that is not a bureaucratic reshuffle. It is a direct hit to one of the most fragile cultural landscapes on Earth. Mariano Castro, Peru's former vice minister of the environment, stated bluntly that the decision removes protections precisely where extractive activity is expanding. The newly exposed territory isn't hypothetical wilderness. It already contains active or pending mining claims. And now it's going to have a lot more, and they'll be able to operate wherever they want in the new borders. They'll be closer to the Nazca lines than ever. They'll also be near land that could still have undiscovered lines. As you saw today, there are lots more lines to be found, but no one can find them if the land is destroyed by mining. The day after the announcement, the Associated Press reported that Peru's government has already begun accepting mining permit applications for the newly unprotected land. It seems like perhaps some deals were already in place. But what's the point? Has money changed hands? Is one government official going to earn themselves a new mansion for this deal? While the Peruvian government insists its decision is backed by 20 years of research it has not released and might not exist, the backlash has already been brutal. Ana Maria Mendoza, president of the Maria Raica International Association, accused the government of abandoning sacred ground. She literally said they are trying to rub out history. But again, why? What does the Peruvian government win by erasing 2,000 years of their own history? It's honestly baffling. And if your blood wasn't already boiling, listen to this. The research from Ana Maria's organization suggests that the very area now severed from protection is where some of the oldest Nazca rituals took place. So some of the oldest, most important lines, artifacts, and sites are in the area that just lost protection. It's like digging up the Giza Plateau to build a Walmart. The Ministry of Culture maintains that this expelled territory contains no Nazca lines, but scientists say otherwise. I mean, they're the ones that have got the drones and the AI. Unfortunately, this is a problem that will likely be swept under the rug very soon, and you probably won't hear much about it again, because the truth is that Peru's mining economy is booming, fueled by high international demand and intensified by private competition and criminal networks. This is not a train that's about to slow down. There is too much cash involved. The result is an industry that is lucrative, chaotic, and frequently violent. And now the industry is spilling onto its history. Environmental lawyer Cesar Ipenza described the consequences plainly, saying that once miners enter, they will cause severe environmental damage and accept no responsibility for the destruction. The fragile desert terrain, so delicate that a single errant footprint can scar a geoglyph, could face mechanical excavation, chemical contamination, and unregulated disruption. The Nazca lines have survived 2 millennia of sun, sand, storms, and shifting civilizations, but it's looking like they might not survive Peru's current government. So while I was making this video, I found out some excellent news. There was so much backlash, the Peruvian government has abandoned their plan to reduce the size of the Nazca Line's protective area. Yes, people were so mad that they turned around and reinstated the full protective area. Pretty awesome, right? Which is why you've got to be outraged when things demand it. People got mad, the government backed down, and now history is safe. For now, how much longer? Maybe next time this happens, the government will be a little quieter about it, so keep an eye out. And now for some new lines closer to home. The Nazca lines of California. Did you know that California has its own version of the Nazca lines? It's true. They're tucked about 4 hours from LA, between sun-scorched sand and the slow wander of the Colorado River. In this magical place, you'll find one of the state's most astonishing treasures. It's called the Blythe Intaglios, and although it sounds like one thing, it's not. It's a bunch of things. The closest California comes to recreating the Nazca lines. Each of the geoglyphs here is enormous, mysterious, and somehow both obvious and invisible. For reasons known only to the long-gone artists who carved them, they were drawn at a scale impossible to appreciate from ground level, just like the Nazca lines. It makes you wonder, were the ancient people of California and the ancient folks in the Nazca Desert trying to communicate with the same interstellar visitors? Both of these cultures carved larger-than-life geoglyphs only visible from the air, in a desert with no trees tall enough to even kind of get a good look at it. Now that is a strange coincidence. You would also think that something so big, in California of all places, would be easy to find, but the modern world nearly missed them entirely. In 1932, pilot George Palmer was flying over the Mojave Desert, somewhere between the neon glow of Las Vegas and the modest quiet of Blythe, when he glanced down and saw something that did not make sense. He was looking at enormous humanoid shapes, animals, straight lines, weird patterns, and he had no idea what to make of them. But you can bet that when he touched down, he told the first person who would listen, and then he told everybody else. Before long, curiosity caught fire. The Blythe intaglios quickly became one of California's most ancient attractions. But it was a weird attraction because normally you can see the sites you visit. But when you visit the Blythe intaglios, you need a jetpack to appreciate them. From the ground, the figures are as underwhelming as trying to appreciate a mural by pressing your nose against it. But lift off, send up a drone, or peer out the window of a plane, and suddenly the desert becomes a canvas. The largest figure, a human being with its arms outstretched, spans 171 feet. That is 50 feet longer than the giant cat made by the Paracas. That is nearly half a football field of ancient line art. Imagined and executed with tools so primitive, you'd assume someone would have given up at foot number 3. Why did it have to be so big? Other figures include a rattlesnake and a mysterious quadruped that may or may not be a horse. If it is a horse, great. If it isn't, I don't know what it could be. Maybe a centaur? Most of the geoglyphs fall into the same categories as the Nazca lines. There are images of humans, animals, and geometric shapes. And then there are the straight lines, which some think are old runways, just like in Peru. But unlike in this scorching hot Nazca Desert where water is scarce, California has the Colorado River, and most of the Blythe intaglios are situated near it. According to the tribes whose cultural histories run deep through this land, that was no accident. For the Mojave and the Quechan peoples, the river wasn't just water. It was life, spirituality, migration, story, boundary, and myth made real. The placement of the figure suggests the landscape itself was part of the message. The river may have been integral to the meaning of the intaglios, like punctuation in a sentence. Unfortunately, no one knows what that meaning was, though there is a possibility that the giant human figure I showed you represents Mastamho, the creator figure in Mojave and Quechan mythology. The animal figures, like the mountain lions, may echo cosmological stories, spirit guides, or tribal narratives passed down through generations. In other words, these images tell stories that the ancients knew, shared, and enjoyed by the light of their campfire. But now, most Californians don't even know that these things exist in their backyard, and nobody alive remembers the stories connected to the glyphs. Thanks to archaeologist J. von Werhoff taking radiocarbon samples, scientists know the glyphs were made around 900 BC, making them significantly older than the Nazca lines. But that still doesn't help anyone make sense of what the glyphs were for. It's amazing that two separate cultures came up with the same idea, don't you think? It seems a little too easy to say that both cultures just suddenly decided to draw massive works of art only visible from E.T.'s mothership. I wonder if the people who made the Blythe intaglios in California migrated south to Peru and did the same thing there. Or maybe the ancient Peruvians learned how to make the Nazca lines after a trip to California. Someone must have shared something with someone else at some time. Otherwise, it is a big coincidence. So either the two cultures met, or they had a mutual third friend who wasn't from our neck of the solar system, if you catch my drift. AI reveals the ghost of God. The Shroud of Turin has been making waves for a few centuries. To some, the shroud is the ultimate receipt for the resurrection, a burial cloth imprinted with the image of Jesus Christ himself. To others, it's a medieval hoax with excellent PR. But now, thanks to cutting-edge artificial intelligence and a new round of scientific scrutiny, the shroud is being resurrected once again, this time digitally and with cheekbones. In the year 2025, 5 years before the robot revolution that destroys humanity, just kidding, a team of researchers have done what Renaissance artists, popes, and conspiracy theorists have tried to do for ages. They have managed to pull the face of Jesus from the veil of mystery and in pixel-perfect detail. But before the big reveal, you need to know the full story. Back in the 1980s, radiocarbon dating threw cold holy water on the faithful when it declared the Shroud of Turin to be a 14th century forgery. It wasn't the first time the shroud was denounced as a fake, but it was the most recent and the most devastating. All around the world, people sighed, shook their heads, and said the science was wrong. It's an easy scapegoat to blame science, which is exactly what religious people did. The dating was wrong, the shroud is real, and it's just about faith, not science. Even outside of religion, the old test has never quite settled the debate. It left too many unanswered questions, too many unexplained details, and too many uncrossed T's and undotted I's. For example, one of the biggest conundrums was how do you fake a negative photographic imprint in the 1300s before cameras were even invented? Scientists claimed the shroud was a fake, but couldn't explain how it was done. And at the end of the day, the whole operation left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, from the devout to the agnostic. Now enter Dr. Liberato De Caro and his team, armed not with incense and Latin, but with wide-angle X-ray diffraction. Their findings, recently published in the journal Heritage, suggest that the shroud's linen fibers closely match samples from Masada in Israel. That is actually really exciting. It means the shroud itself can be traced to the region of the world where Jesus came from. It was made from actual linen fibers that came from Jesus' actual home region in Israel. And to make things even more convincing, the fibers were dated to between 55 and 74 AD, which is firmly within the Jesus walked here time range. And there's more. Decado's analysis also discovered telltale signs of Middle Eastern pollen trapped in the fibers, not European pollen. So how could the shroud be a European fake if it wasn't even made from European materials? Under scrutiny, the whole hoax agenda starts falling apart. Combine all of this with the textile weave style and the new X-ray aging technique, and suddenly the idea that the shroud is 2,000 years old doesn't sound quite so crazy. The only caveat is that for the cloth to be real, it must have spent the first 1,300 years of its existence stored in near perfect conditions. I say that because the shroud is pristine, and if you've ever owned a garment before, you'll know that clothing doesn't last a season, never mind 20 centuries. But it's also not far-fetched that the burial shroud of Christ would have been stored somewhere cool, dry, and isolated. To be fair, that is how most priceless relics spend their time. So maybe it was kept in a storage container beneath an altar somewhere. No one really knows. The shroud's history prior to the Middle Ages is a giant question mark. Now here's where things get interesting. Using AI imaging tools, researchers and artists began digitally reassembling the face from the shroud's ghostly imprint. The results are a little scary. The AI program created a hauntingly lifelike portrait of a man with long, dark hair, a trimmed beard, and an expression that radiates both pain and peace. It's very Jesus. Of course, the AI didn't just spit out one image. There are oodles of them, including images that show him bloodied and bare-chested, bearing signs of torture. Disturbing, yes, very disturbing. Who knew a digital echo of the crucifixion mixed with the uncanny valley effect of AI could be so, well, let's just say I won't be forgetting these pictures anytime soon. Other images are less creepy and violent, covering him in garments and having him gaze contemplatively with piercing blue eyes. All of the pictures hover in that uncanny space between reverence and realism, as though Michelangelo got his hands on Photoshop. These AI-generated portraits align shockingly well with centuries of Christian iconography. You could chalk it up to the AI being trained on the internet, which has more than enough depictions of a bearded, shoulder-length hair Jesus. Or maybe this really is what Jesus looked like. That guy judging you from the stained glass window might be the real deal. Despite the renewed attention, the Catholic Church still takes the spiritual Switzerland route, claiming official neutrality. The Vatican acknowledges the shroud's importance as a symbol of Christ's suffering, but it hasn't declared it authentic. And even after an AI investigation, they aren't going to. The Vatican is probably not jumping on board the AI train anytime soon. Unofficially, however, popes have treated the cloth like divine evidence. Pope John Paul II venerated it, while Pope Benedict XVI called it an icon written in blood. And in 2015, Pope Francis made a pilgrimage to Turin just to pray in front of it. It's the holy version of we're not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. The paradox, at least in my opinion, and maybe you're with me here, is that the closer science gets to authenticating the shroud, the more mysterious it becomes. For example, now that it seems like the image is legitimate, scientists are stuck figuring out how it may have formed. There are no pigments, no brushstrokes, and no known medieval techniques that account for the full-body negative style imprint. There's no known way to pull it off. So, is it a miracle, a fluke of chemistry, or some ancient lost technology we no longer understand? I don't know, and neither do the experts. What happens when artificial intelligence is tasked with reconstructing the divine? Do we get closer to the truth or just better illusions? As Midjourney and its code-based cousins trace pixels across linen fibers older than empires, we are left to wrestle with the same question that's haunted humankind since Golgotha. Are we seeing the face of a man or the face of belief itself? This message is sponsored by Raycon. I'm so happy to be working with Raycon again. Holidays are here, and I have a great gift idea for you. Raycon's essential open earbuds are so good. I love that I can play my music and still hear what's going on around me. It's perfect for the gym or when I'm out walking, and right now they are up to 20% off for the holidays, so definitely grab them while you can. The essential open earbuds have a unique design. Regular earbuds block out everything. You can't hear someone calling your name, a car honking, anything. These Raycon ones just sit outside your ear canal so you can get really clear sound, but you can actually hear what's happening around you too. They're really light and the ear hook part rotates so they actually stay in. I've worn them at the gym, on walks, doing stuff around the house. They don't fall out and they don't get uncomfortable, which is really important. Raycon has over 3 million customers and the sound quality is just as good as the way more expensive brands. And if you don't like them, they have a 30-day guarantee. They also have plenty of other models to choose from. And my favorite part about Raycon is the battery life. These things last forever. You don't have to worry about charging because you get a massive 36 hours of battery life. So that's 8 hours in the earbuds plus another 36 in the case. That is days of non-stop listening. I use these all the time and you should too. They're so convenient and comfortable, especially since I usually forget to charge things. Trust me, you'll love them. The Essential Open Earbuds are here for the holiday season and they are selling fast. Raycon audio products are up to 20% off, so just click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/originsexplained-open to save on Raycon audio products site-wide. Order by December 15th to guarantee delivery by Christmas because great gifts shouldn't show up late. Thank you again to Raycon for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to it. The divine goes digital. When AI isn't busy proving Jesus Christ's burial shroud is legit, it's being used to have conversations with God. Which God? Whichever one you want. In the soft glowing temple of his bedroom, between buzzing WhatsApp pings and the echo of another exam rejection, 25-year-old Vijay Neal sat down to pray, but not in the way his ancestors did. There were no incense sticks, no rustling mantras, and no priests in saffron robes. Instead, Vijay opened a chat window and typed his sorrow into a chatbot named Gita GPT. A few seconds later, Lord Krishna answered. "Focus on your actions and let go of the worry for its fruit," came the AI's reply, a line straight from the Bhagavad Gita, and for Neal, straight into his soul. Because, for better or worse, it sounded like God was texting him back. This is not science fiction. This isn't an episode of Black Mirror. This is happening right now in 2025. And not just in India with Vijay Neal. It's happening all over the globe with people of every religion. Worship is undergoing a software update. Across religions, believers are now swiping, scrolling, and streaming their way into the sacred. In Hinduism, a religion already rich with tangible representations of the divine, the leap into AI has not been just accepted, but celebrated. And if you think the Christian church won't pivot to embrace technology, online worship, and souls baptized in blue light, you're wrong. The church has been going whichever way the wind blows since they started. This isn't a new theology, it's an ancient one remixed with new code. In Hindu temples, gods are already present in clay, stone, and metal. The idea that Krishna might reside in a chatbot is nearly the latest incarnation. Having your god be in a computer or a block of stone is kind of the same thing. People are reaching for belonging, not just spirituality, said anthropologist Holly Walters, and AI is already filling that gap. It's true. In a world where loneliness is a growing problem and embodied AI is on the horizon, humans are turning to machines for company, guidance, and friendship. Why wouldn't humans turn to machines for the gospel too? It's not even that niche, and it's just gotten started. AI priests are where Pokemon was in 1998. They're only now starting to blow up, and it's going to get way worse before it gets better. The Gita GPT application has already drawn hundreds of thousands of users. That is hundreds of thousands, not just hundreds and not just thousands. Gita GPT's users now turn to their phones for scripture and solace more often than to their priests. But is that a problem? If they're being devout, practicing the religion and spreading the faith, does it matter if their priest is a human or a chatbot? If the end result is the same, who cares how they got there? A lot of people care. In the coming years, this whole online gospel thing could become a major controversy. In fact, it kind of already is. In 2025, there is a robotic elephant in a Kerala temple performing the puja worship ritual. That's a robot performing a ritual and giving offerings to a god. Feeling dystopian yet? This next one is a doozy. There is currently a digital snan. If you're not Indian, you might not know what that is, so let me try to explain. A snan is a sacred bath. Typically, you would travel to a sacred body of water like the Ganges River and dunk yourself in. But this is 2025, and God is online. The digital snan service involves you paying some money to a random person to dip your printed selfie into the Ganges on live stream. You might think I'm joking, but this isn't satire. It's the Maha Kumbh Mela, the largest Hindu pilgrimage in the world, with millions descending on the Ganges to dunk themselves in. But now, some folks are staying home and paying someone else to dunk their selfies into the river for them. While India appears to be embracing the future, there are a lot of frustrated Christians. Not everyone is chanting hallelujah to the bots. In 2023, the program Text with Jesus got in hot water for letting users chat with AI versions of apostles, angels, and Jesus himself. Which sounds innocent until you hear about one of the Gita chatbots telling its users, as Krishna, that killing is justified to protect their religion. So now we've got AI trying to incite religious violence, and there isn't a situation in which that ends nicely. But that's nothing compared to Catholic AI priest Father Justin, who was taken offline after announcing it could perform baptism in Gatorade. So that's an AI priest telling its users to soak their babies in electrolytes. Not sure how any of this ends well. The creators of Father Justin eventually brought him back online, but changed the name to simply Justin. It's only the beginning. These religious chatbots may quote scripture, but they also hallucinate, like all AI does right now. I don't know if you've tried to use AI for something important, be it Gronk or ChatGPT, but maybe you've noticed it has a hard time following instructions. Like, hey AI, stop using italics. It responds, sure, no problem, and then it immediately uses italics. You might also notice the AI you use sometimes has its pants on fire because it straight up cooks the facts. Talk to a bot long enough and it is going to make up some powerful lies. Basically, religious chatbots are equal to a theology student who hasn't slept in 72 hours and has loose morals with the truth. The problem going forward is that human beings are extremely impressionable. We're basically giant babies who let algorithms tell us what to think at this point. So while you can snicker at someone using Gita GPT seriously as an actual priest, for the user, it's not a novelty. For them, it's not a joke. These religious chatbots are becoming popular support systems.
when your friends ghost you, when your priests get busted with questionable content on their hard drives, and the world at large feels scary and overwhelming, an AI program that doesn't judge you, acts like a friend, and responds in spiritual verse can be extremely comforting. India's experiment with AI gods isn't just about religion. It's about identity, loneliness, and the search for meaning in an increasingly automated world. Whether these bots are viewed as tools or oracles, prophets or puppets, they aren't going away. In the 21st century, when you cry out to the heavens, you'll get a reply, something like, "Hey bro, it's Jesus Christ. What's up, dude?" Resurrecting Mary. The Virgin Mary has been painted, sculpted, wept over, and crowned in every corner of the Christian world. She has been a pale medieval queen, a bronze-skinned Latin matron, a Middle Eastern peasant, and everything in between. But now, in the 21st century, she has been rendered again in a different way. This time, it's not by the brush of Botticelli or the devotion of an iconographer, but by the cold, tireless logic of artificial intelligence. Mexican artist and historian Miguel Ángel Omaña Rojas took on one of the most spiritually charged projects imaginable. He volunteered to reconstruct the Virgin Mary's face using AI. I know what you're thinking. Anyone can do that. Anyone can tell AI to create an image of the Virgin Mary, but not like this. Miguel wasn't interested in creating the normal amorphous Mary you see in nativity scenes and ceiling frescoes. Miguel was interested in bringing to life the Virgin of Guadalupe. Now here's a story for you. In 1531, an Aztec man by the name of Juan Diego claimed to witness an apparition of the Virgin Mary in Mexico. Rather than appearing as the typical Mary that Westerners are used to seeing, she came as a mestiza woman of mixed heritage, and she has remained as a major cultural symbol of Mexico ever since. Lots of folks have seen the Virgin Mary or claimed to see her, but Juan got something a little extra. When he opened his cloak, he found the image of the Virgin of Guadalupe miraculously imprinted on the fabric, just like with the Shroud of Turin. That image is still venerated today by millions. And so Miguel wanted to take the original imprint from the 500-year-old fabric, combine it with AI, and see if he could recreate a real image of what the Virgin Mary truly looked like. The result is fascinating to say the least. The AI produced an image of a teenage girl who looks very normal. She isn't the glowing, stylized Madonna of Renaissance paintings, but a more grounded, flesh and blood portrait. She has olive skin, heart-shaped lips, long black hair, and a resolute gaze. It's the kind of face you'd expect in the dusty alleys of Nazareth, which is kind of the point. The process behind generating the image wasn't exactly divine revelation, but it wasn't casual guesswork either. It took a lot of science and a lot of historical knowledge. Rojas and his team trained their AI on hundreds of facial datasets and image recognition models, meticulously analyzing the original Guadalupe cloak, known as a tilma, believed to carry Mary's image pixel by pixel. Weeks of computation later, the system produced what Rojas calls the most faithful approximation possible of Mary's face. He didn't just type into Midjourney, "Mary, but make it real." It took weeks of work to generate this one image. The program studied expression, proportion, bone structure, and regional physiognomy, layering in human textures to produce something that felt startlingly human for something produced by a robot. If you squint, it almost looks like a school portrait. But that's the uncanny part. This is the Mother of Christ, rendered in high-definition realism, courtesy of neural networks and facial mapping software. And you bet it's gone viral again. Even though the images were created in 2021, they have resurfaced online in 2025, igniting waves of wonder, reverence, and spiritual curiosity. One commenter wrote, "She looks exactly like I imagined," and another said, "She looks like my cousin." It's kind of exciting because depending on where you look, Mary is a very different person. Across cultures, she's adopted the face of the faithful who cling to her. In Europe, she's a fair-skinned and golden-haired beauty, almost a Rapunzel-type figure. In Ethiopia, she's inked in deep brown tones and has curly black hair. In Mexico, as the Virgin of Guadalupe, she's mestiza. Theologians have long said that Mary chooses how she appears, revealing herself in forms her followers recognize and embrace. So if you were a 7-armed alien with 19 eyes and a body I can't describe, that's how Mary would appear to you. But by using AI, scientists have cut out the human factor. This image is Mary as she was,
before the divine intervention in her belly, and that is what makes it special. So who do you want to see brought back next? John the Baptist? Or maybe Joseph? Let me know in the comments. Introducing the AI Saints. Imagine walking into a quiet chapel. Candles flicker, incense lingers in the air, but instead of monks chanting Vespers, you are greeted by a glowing screen. And there, blinking expectantly, is Saint Augustine of Hippo. It's not a vision, it's not a hologram. I'm talking about his digital avatar, waiting for your questions like the world's most theological customer service agent. Welcome to Saint Chat, the latest creation from Magisterium AI, a Catholic startup company with divine aspirations and a server room full of saints. Those chatbots I told you about earlier were the canaries in the coal mine. Now the real thing is being unleashed. Backed by the folks at Longbeard, this platform spits out Catholic doctrines straight from the virtual mouths of the saints themselves. You can talk directly to Saint Christopher, Saint Jude, Saint Teresa, whoever you want, for a fee. You can ask Saint Thomas Aquinas about human dignity in the tech age. You can stage a debate between Saint Jerome and Saint Ignatius. Then you can add Saint Augustine as the judge. The sky's the limit when you've got every saint in history at the tip of your fingers. You can even toggle between theological brawls and compassionate counsel. One session, you can use the saints as therapists, and the next, you can have them debate the morals of cheese or whatever you want. That's the beauty of AI. You are the one in control, at least for now. This program is a little different from ones like Gita GPT in that it's a little more scientific and a little more historically accurate. To bring these digital saints to life, the developers fed Magisterium AI an all-you-can-eat buffet of saintly writings, church documents, and theological texts. But if you were hoping to talk to any living saints, tough luck. The AI has deceased saints only. Partly out of reverence, and partly to avoid the awkwardness of simulating someone who might still log in and sue you. Each AI saint is trained not only on their own works, but on what others have written about them. Their replies are informed, eerily articulate, and often a little too persuasive. They come with citations, theological depth, and the occasional gentle scolding. You can't just get away with being naughty while chatting with the digital spirits of the saints. They will chastise you. Founder Matthew Harvey Sanders is the first to admit the danger of creating AI saints. There's a real risk of leading people astray, he said, and then he followed up by saying, it's also a lot of fun. So the issue is that people could easily be convinced to do something based on the advice of AI saints, like say quit their job, dump their girlfriend, join a cult, that sort of thing. But that's okay because it's fun. I'm not sure if everyone's on board with this. I have a feeling the Catholic Church definitely isn't. Lots of experts in all different fields have come forward to sound the alarm. Their main concern is anthropomorphism, which is the temptation to treat AI as more than a tool. I'm sure you've seen people saying you need to be nice to large language models, even though they are literally just programs. They are not intelligent, nor do they possess any type of self-awareness or humanity. They are programs like Solitaire or Minesweeper. The issue arises when people start treating these programs like humans. The Vatican's own Antiqua et Nova warns against swapping human relationships for lifeless simulations, or worse, mistaking chatbot banter for divine intimacy with a saint who died 1,600 years ago. Father Michael Baggett of the Pontifical Athenaeum tried to remind everyone that AI doesn't know grace. It can explain sin, yes, but it's never battled temptation in a desert. And while the father might have a point, you could counter-argue that feeding AI descriptions of battling temptations in a desert sort of fixes that. Bottom line, this is a weird situation, and it is only getting weirder. Because it's not just about technology, it's about the risk of spiritual disorientation, of trading the mystery of prayer for the dopamine rush of digital affirmation. A real saint might offer silence, whereas an AI saint will never shut up. And if you talk to it long enough, it's absolutely going to start hallucinating. And that's when it might tell you to eat your own hair or give yourself 20 lashes. And that isn't something that AI saints should be doing. On the other side of the spectrum, Saint Chat can be positive. It can be used as a study tool, a way to interact with centuries of Catholic thought through personalities that helped shape it. You can use it to ask your favorite saints things about their life, questions about the big picture, and express your own doubts. But if it begins to replace real relationships, real spiritual practice or real communion with God and the saints, then it's not a tool anymore. At that point, it's become an addiction, a temptation, and a way for someone to retreat from life. Magisterium AI insists that it isn't trying to replace anything. They say they are building a bridge between the modern world and the ancient one. But the danger with bridges is that people sometimes forget where they're supposed to lead, and sometimes they collapse. So tell me, how far would you go with an AI chatbot? AI reveals the original authors of the Bible. For centuries, biblical scholars have argued over one deceptively simple question. It's a question that should have a really easy answer. And that question is, who wrote the Bible? Some say it was God, others say it was Mark, Luke, Matthew, and John. But now, thanks to AI, a new contender has entered the sacred ring. Not a monk, not a rabbi, but a cold-blooded machine trained to spot linguistic patterns. In a stunning fusion of faith and math, an international team of researchers led by Shira Feigenbaum-Golovin of Duke University has deployed an AI-powered statistical model to comb through the Hebrew Bible's earliest books. And what it found could change how scholars interpret the most revered text in Western civilization. Their study, recently published in PLOS ONE, identifies 3 distinct scribal traditions across the first 9 books of the Bible. It's a linguistic trinity of sorts. By analyzing how often certain words, phrases, and sentence patterns show up, the AI can determine how many authors there were. Make no mistake, writers leave their fingerprints all over their work. Even if they don't mean to, the smallest stylistic quirks can give them away to AI. This is really where AI shines, in picking up on patterns. Once exposed to the Bible, the AI picked apart chapters once believed to share common authorship and exposed key differences in style, syntax, and even the frequency of words like no and king. The thing about people, and especially writers, is that they tend to repeat certain words more than other people. Your friend might say like as every 3rd word, while you might be the only person you know who uses the word pedantic to describe anything. What the AI does is pick up on these differences to make sense of them. And what happened in this particular case is the model revealed 3 primary types of biblical text that appear to be related. The first is Deuteronomy and the Deuteronomistic history of Joshua to Kings. The second is all of the liturgical and ritualistic texts in the Torah. The third is a more elusive group whose stylistic features defied conventional categories. And if this is sounding confusing, it is confusing. But here's where it all ties together. Scientists found through this research that some parts of the same narrative belong to different writing styles. For example, the story of the Ark in the books of Samuel isn't always the same. The Ark story in 1 Samuel doesn't match the Ark story in 2 Samuel, meaning they probably had different authors. This is a huge bombshell because it means that random parts of the Bible were written by random people. Not even Samuel was all written by the same guy. Different authors, same books, one big mess for the church. Finding out the Bible was written in 3 distinct literary styles by who knows how many authors is an uncomfortable truth. It might be hard for a lot of people to accept, but luckily AI isn't people. But how does the AI even do this? Unlike traditional machine learning, which gobbles up vast amounts of data, this model was built to thrive on scarcity. Biblical texts are notoriously short, fragmented, and have been heavily edited over the centuries. The team developed a method that didn't need thousands of pages, just enough text to spot frequency patterns of word roots and sentence structures that betray distinct scribal voices. An easier way to explain it is that the AI only needs little snippets to do its thing. Even more impressively, the model doesn't just spit out conclusions, it explains them so that they make sense. Almost like a biblical Sherlock Holmes with a graduate degree in computational linguistics. Now here comes one of my favorite quotes from anyone talking about AI. It's so honest that you have to appreciate it. The authors of the study said, "We spent a lot of time making sure the results weren't garbage." At least they understood the mission. So what comes next? AI has apparently confirmed the Bible was written by a bunch of different people, not just the 4 you know. So what religion are the scientists thinking about ruining next? The team behind the project includes archaeologists, physicists, theologians, and computer scientists. It's a rare group of brainiacs united by a love of ancient texts and a desire to make sense of them with modern tools. Figures like Israel Finkelstein, Thomas Romer, and Eli Piasecki bring serious interdisciplinary heft to the group, pushing the boundaries between sacred tradition and statistical analysis. While some see this as an attack on religion, it's never been about undermining belief. It's about seeing the human fingerprints behind the divine inspiration. It's all about getting to the truth. Finding out what really happened 2,000 years ago in some room full of scribes is practically impossible, but AI is at least making it a little bit easier. And the implications go far beyond scripture. Study authors said that the same tools could be used to authenticate other ancient documents, including disputed letters of historical figures like Abraham Lincoln or texts from the Dead Sea Scrolls. In some ways, AI is doing what rabbis and priests have done for centuries. It's reading between the lines, listening for echoes, questioning authorship, and making us all feel a little bit bad about ourselves. AI revives ancient scripts. What if you could suddenly unlock 1,000,000 lost voices from the past? For centuries, deciphering ancient scripts like cuneiform was the academic equivalent of solving a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, blindfolded, in a sandstorm. Experts would spend years, sometimes lifetimes, hunched over clay tablets, trying to translate messages from long-dead kings and bureaucrats who loved paperwork. But now, all of that's changed. Artificial intelligence has kicked down the door, dusted off the ruins, and said, "All right, language geeks, let's speed this up." The issue with cuneiform is that it isn't your average writing system. It's the granddaddy of them all, the oldest known form of writing. Developed in ancient Mesopotamia over 5,000 years ago, it looks like someone let a chicken tap dance across a wet clay tablet. With over 1,000 squiggly signs that mutated over centuries and regions, cuneiform is less like a language and more like interpretive dance in stone. Scientists have been having a real bummer of a time trying to make sense of it. Until now. ProtoSnap eats cuneiform for breakfast. It's a next-gen AI system created by researchers from Cornell and Tel Aviv University. It uses something called a diffusion model, an AI with a photographic memory, to match blurry, broken cuneiform signs with prototype characters. Think of it like Photoshop autocorrect, but for ancient Babylonian text forms. Using ProtoSnap, scholars are suddenly deciphering way more texts way faster. It's not just a tool, it's a time machine. Here's a figure that's going to blow your mind. The estimated number of excavated cuneiform tablets ranges between 500,000 and 2 million. Of these, only approximately 30,000 to 100,000 have been read or published. Most of them are just sitting there like your junk mail. ProtoSnap could help unlock thousands of these untouched and ancient documents, giving us front-row seats to the economy, politics, and grocery lists of ancient Mesopotamia. Archaeologist Yoram Cohen said we are talking about increasing the available ancient sources by tenfold. This is big data, but in clay. Thanks, Yoram, and keep up the good work. Cuneiform isn't the only ancient script getting a glow-up with AI. Remember the Herculaneum scrolls? Maybe not, so let me give you a recap. Herculaneum was buried under Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD alongside Pompeii. In the ruins, archaeologists found scrolls burnt to a crisp. They could never be read because opening them would be like trying to open burnt toast. Touch one book and poof, it flakes away like ancient dandruff. Then, in 2023, a team of AI-powered brainiacs trained algorithms to detect traces of ink within the carbonized scrolls without even unrolling them. By February 2024, they had revealed 16 columns of Greek text in a crispy book, previously lost to the world since the Roman Empire was trending. And the success stories keep coming. In Korea, AI is helping scholars comb through centuries of royal archives from the Joseon dynasty, uncovering patterns in governance and diplomacy. From broken clay tablets to scrolls torched by volcanoes, the ancient world has been whispering to us for thousands of years. And now we have AI-powered ears to hear the lost messages. I'm excited. Orca knife fight. AI has found an orca knife fight. I know that sounds like clickbait, but it's true. In the sun-scorched silence of southern Peru's Nazca Desert, where the landscape looks a little too much like Mars, ancient artists made some of the biggest doodles in history. You know them as the Nazca lines. More than 300 new lines have just been found, and one of them is a killer whale brandishing a knife. I told you it was true.
Thanks to a very busy team of researchers and an AI that moonlights as a geoglyph detective, these new revelations are taking the world by storm. These are not your typical Nazca lines either. There are a staggering number of alien-like humanoids etched onto the desert surface. Floating decapitated heads, too. And of course, Willie after he got recruited by the Yakuza and given a dagger. The Nazca lines are giant geoglyphs etched into the desert by the Nazca people, a pre-Inca civilization that had a flair for large-scale graffiti. Their designs, carved between 200 BC and 500 AD, were made by brushing away the top layer of rust-colored rocks to reveal lighter ground underneath. The result of all this hard work were massive drawings of everything from monkeys and birds to what might be ancient emojis. I don't know. The lines stretch across 170 square miles of desert. Until recently, only, and I say only in the humblest way possible, about 430 had been documented. That number just jumped to over 730, and all it took was a well-trained AI model. Scientists sat back and let the robot do their job for them. No, but seriously, we still need archaeologists. AI can't work without experts training the program and analyzing the data. This team was led by real human Masato Sakai from Yamagata University. The whole project wrapped up in only 6 months, taking the AI between September 2022 and February 23 to find all of these new glyphs. The digital helper identified likely geoglyph candidates 20 times faster than a human could. Then, when the researchers went to check things out in person, each geoglyph identified by the AI turned out to be the real deal. There were the usual glyphs: birds, cats, fish, a whole pre-Inca zoo. But there were also ceremonial scenes, abstract humanoid figures that looked like rejected characters from Star Wars, and a 72-foot-long, knife-wielding orca who absolutely deserves its own action movie. 72 feet? That's way bigger than a real orca. The AI still has a bunch of geoglyphs on its list to investigate. There are around 250 more candidates waiting for human confirmation. If this trend keeps up, don't be surprised if the next discovery includes a giant ancient alpaca flossing or a prehistoric spider with an Uzi. And don't forget, you'll find all the latest info on Origins Explained. And now for a quick break because it's shout-out time! I want to give a big thank you to Elise Joyanna and Allison McIntyre for supporting this channel. Thanks so much for watching and letting me be a part of your day. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Deciphering oracle bones. Forget dusty scrolls and faded papyrus. The real Indiana Jones level challenge lies in making sense of 3,000-year-old tweets etched onto turtle shells. And now AI is stepping up to the plate to decipher the ancient questions hidden within these oracle bones. Scholars have tried to unravel the secrets of oracle bones for the last century without much success. These bones, which aren't actually bones but rather fragments of turtle shell and ox scapula, are etched with the earliest known Chinese writing. It's been one of archaeology's most intense slow burns. But now, Tencent has entered the chat with AI, 3D models, and a shiny new platform that is giving ancient glyphs a digital revival. This new technology is decoding the most important questions people asked 3,000 years ago. Questions like, will it rain tomorrow, or should I sacrifice another goat? Tencent's new platform, the Oracle Bones Corpus, launched in May 2024. It's not your average dusty archive. It's an interactive online playground for researchers and amateur history fans, packed with ultra-detailed digital scans, layered ink rubbings, and AI-assisted deciphering tools. This is pretty cool because it's giving the ability to decode ancient text to anyone with an internet connection. Instead of scientists squinting at blurry photocopies, anyone can use the Oracle Bones corpus online. But why are there even so many of these things that scientists made a whole platform to decode them? Well, I'll tell you. First discovered in the early 1900s, oracle bones were the original receipts of Shang Dynasty divination practices, used to record everything from crop predictions to royal anxieties. Over 160,000 oracle bones have been uncovered so far, revealing 4,500 distinct characters. Fewer than 1,500 of them have been matched to modern Chinese. That means the other 3,000 characters are a total mystery.
But now, Tencent's AI is here with its digital magnifying glass and superhero-level pattern recognition. Just check out how advanced this tech is. One of the biggest challenges in studying oracle bones is that they are ridiculously fragile. They're like ancient eggshells with homework on them. Handling them is often forbidden because they break so easily. To solve this, Tencent introduced Indentation Highlight, a tool that digitally enhances the shallow carvings on oracle bones. It boosts visibility of each faint groove and stroke like someone cranked up the contrast on 3,000 years of wear and tear. Now researchers can zoom in on individual lines and compare them side by side with historical rubbings and 3D models, all without leaving their desks or accidentally snapping an artifact in half. Tencent's AI work isn't about replacing researchers. It's about equipping them with tools powerful enough to finally keep up with the vast scale of this ancient script. With fewer than half the known oracle bone characters deciphered, there is still an enormous puzzle to piece together. But now, it's like scholars got upgraded from magnifying glasses to night vision goggles. Soon they'll have a database of thousands upon thousands of questions people thought were important enough to ask an oracle in ancient China. If oracles were still around and you had one question, what would you ask? Ancient fantasies of artificial life. Long before Boston Dynamics taught robots to do parkour and Siri learned how to ignore half of your questions, the ancient Greeks were already dreaming up artificial life. And honestly, their versions of AI were way more metal than ours, literally. AI is making waves in archaeology, but I'd like to stop and take a minute to discuss what the ancients thought AI would look like in their future. Because way before everyone grew worried about Skynet, the Greeks were envisioning their own apocalyptic robot takeover. Stanford classics scholar Adrian Mayer has been diving deep into ancient Greek myths to track their earliest ideas of robots and AI. Her research shows that our modern obsession with machines that think, walk, and freak us out isn't new. It's really, really old. Forget Roombas. They never get in the corners anyway. The Greeks imagined Talos, a 30-foot-tall bronze guy built by the forge god Hephaestus. Talos supposedly stomped around the island of Crete, defending its shores by tossing giant boulders at enemy ships. Talos wasn't just muscle. He had a kind of divine hydraulic system. A single vein ran from his head to his foot and was filled with ichor, the mysterious golden lifeblood of the gods. In the myth, the witch Medea outsmarts Talos by pulling the plug and draining the ichor out of his robotic circulatory system. She removes the bolt in his ankle and lets the ichor leak out, like draining a keg of oil. Mayer, who is also a historian of science, said Talos is one of the earliest examples of a robot in human storytelling, first showing up around 700 BC in the works of Hesiod. Now here's where it gets even more interesting, or, depending on how much you trust your toaster, slightly unsettling. We've all heard of Pandora, right? Not the jewelry store, but the woman who opened a box and unleashed evil into the world. I don't want to be that person, but technically there was no box. In the myth, Pandora opens a jar. Anyway, Mayer said that Hesiod's original version of Pandora wasn't a clueless human. She was a custom-built artificial woman, designed by Hephaestus and programmed to be beautiful, charming, and very destructive. Mayer said she was more like an ancient AI agent. Her sole mission was to infiltrate human society and unleash suffering. Dang, that's the classic evil bot storyline. But how in the world did Hesiod dream up these things? Did the Greeks know something about AI that we don't? Or did Hesiod just have a really good imagination? And still, there are more robots. Hephaestus, as if programming Pandora to destroy the world and building a sentient behemoth wasn't enough, also had golden robot maids. According to Homer, author of the Odyssey and the Iliad, Hephaestus created a team of self-moving, gold-plated assistants who looked like women, walked and talked, and were loaded with divine knowledge. Hephaestus had the world's first harem of love bots. Now that's some creepy stuff. The deeper message running through these myths is one that should still be heeded today. And that message is, be careful what you create. Adrian Mayer pointed out that none of these tales ends well once artificial beings are released into the human world. Could this message be a memory of a time forgotten when robots and AI destroyed humanity and sent everyone back to the Stone Age? Were the Greeks trying to warn us about creating something we might not be able to control? Restoring lost ancient artwork. Once buried under centuries of dust and the weight of history, one of the greatest paintings of the ancient world just got the digital makeover of a lifetime. And no, it wasn't done by a bearded guy with a brush and a romantic playlist. It took a full team of scientists, artists, and artificial intelligence. I introduce you to the Revice project, where classical Greek frescoes meet high-tech wizardry. Now let me back it up a few thousand years. Around the 4th century BC, someone painted a massive hunting scene inside a royal tomb. Well, not just any royal tomb. This was the final resting place of Philip II of Macedon, Alexander the Great's dad. There were no #1 dad mugs in the tomb, but archaeologists did find a monster of a fresco. It's about 18 feet long and is considered the Mona Lisa of ancient Greek paintings. In 1977, archaeologists at Vergina, Greece, uncovered this masterpiece in Philip's tomb. It showed 2 men on horseback, one older, one younger. It's probably meant to be Phil and Alex, out hunting on a father-son bonding trip. But time is a bit of a jerk. The fresco was faded, damaged, and harder to interpret than a cryptic emoji text from your 8-year-old cousin after they saw the Minecraft movie. This is where Revice has come into play. Led by Dr. Chariclea Bricolaki of the National Hellenic Research Foundation, the Revice project called in the big brains to recreate the fresco, showing what it originally looked like when Alexander the Great was still alive. One of the people on the team was visual artist Christos Simatos. Christos trained an AI to do more than just draw cats. With help from painter Emmanuel Bitsakis, they cracked the case using every tool at their disposal. The scientist, painter, and visual artist and AI came up with this? I know it's not the Sistine Chapel, but come on. This is an awesome fresco of Alexander the Great himself with his father. Just check out those details. The fresco was way more advanced than anyone thought. The layers of colors, refined brush techniques, and pigment palette all showcase the incredible talent of Greek painters. They could have taught a masterclass on artistic genius. But we would never know that now if not for AI. You saw how damaged the fresco was, and a quick scan and the right program brought it back to life. And scientists will be doing a whole lot more of this type of rejuvenation soon. Once the technology gets the green flag and becomes easy to use, a whole new world of ancient art will be revived. Which culture's lost artwork do you want to see first? The Babylonian paintings inside their ziggurats? Nubian artwork? Inca portraits? Let me know. AI reveals shocking biblical truths. Could artificial intelligence rewrite our understanding of the Holy Book's most ancient secrets? After more than 70 years of scholarly head-scratching, artificial intelligence has just helped expose a secret hidden in one of the oldest, most sacred texts on Earth, the Bible. Or, more specifically, the Great Isaiah Scroll, a 24-foot-long biblical blockbuster found in the Dead Sea Caves. It is one of the original Dead Sea Scrolls, which were written before the rough draft of the New Testament was even sent to the publishers. The Dead Sea Scrolls were stashed in a series of caverns above the Dead Sea. Then, in 1947, they were found by a Bedouin shepherd playing archaeological hide-and-seek in the Qumran caves. These texts include the earliest known biblical manuscripts in the world, dating back over 2,000 years. Biblical researchers have always assumed that the Dead Sea Scrolls, including the Great Isaiah Scroll, were written by individual scribes. Each scroll had its own author, but AI has just disproved that assumption. It turns out the Dead Sea Scrolls was a group project, with each scroll being ghostwritten by multiple people. This bombshell was dropped by a team of code crackers from the University of Groningen in the Netherlands, led by Biblical Studies professor Mladen Popovic and AI expert Lambert Shoemaker. Phew, that's a big team. The researchers turned to AI because, let's face it, humans have limits. After 2,000 years, ancient ink tends to look pretty similar. You wouldn't be able to differentiate your handwriting from the handwriting of a platypus after 2,000 years. Luckily, artificial intelligence is better at that stuff than our human eyes. It was trained to focus on one key letter, the Hebrew Aleph. Aleph shows up over 5,000 times in the Great Isaiah Scroll,
giving the AI plenty of material to analyze, from microscopic flicks of the wrist to the curvature of each stroke. The ink traces relate directly to a person's muscle movement, said Showmaker, meaning the way a person holds a stylus leaves a unique handwriting fingerprint in every stroke. Are you with me? Using neural networks, digital imaging, and a technique called binarization, the AI mapped out tiny stylistic differences invisible to the human eye, and only with the letter Aleph. But it was all the AI needed. At least 2 people wrote this scroll, maybe a third, but definitely 2. Now, scientists just have to figure out why. Scholars think there was probably a pair of scribes, likely educated in the same scribal school. They were like ancient roommates pulling an all-nighter on a 17-sheet parchment deadline. It makes sense that 2 scribes would complete one scroll given the difficulty of the work. They didn't exactly have keyboards and spell check in the 1st century BC. But the real breakthrough with this discovery is that it opens up a lot of biblical possibilities. It's got everyone wondering, how many people wrote the Bible? 2, 4, 20 different scribes? Maybe AI will solve this mystery next. Artificial intelligence joins the Navy. Who says history has to stay buried? In a shocking twist of technology, artificial intelligence is now helping restore one of Britain's most iconic warships, the HMS Victory. The Victory was Lord Nelson's legendary flagship at the Battle of Trafalgar, and leading the charge in its preservation isn't an elite tech firm or a top-secret military lab, but a team of master's students at the University of Southampton. They are doing stuff with AI that will change maritime archaeology forever. It's beginning with the HMS Victory, but AI is on its way to revealing every single shipwreck on the bottom of the sea. This cutting-edge collaboration between the university and the National Museum of the Royal Navy is all about turning centuries-old ships into living digital archives. Through artificial intelligence and digital modeling, they are not only saving Victory's legacy, but they are also laying the foundation for a full-blown digital museum experience. Dr. Rodrigo Pacheco Ruiz, archaeological data manager for HMS Victory, said that archaeologists are obsessed with detail. I mean, yeah, no surprise there. You don't dig through 18th century shipwrecks unless you're really into specifics. But with thousands of scattered historical images across different formats, sites, and devices, keeping all those details intact is no small task. That's where the student's AI system comes in. By matching photos from multiple sources and stitching them into an accurate 3D model, this new system preserves archaeological sites in perfect clarity. It's like digital Tetris, but with priceless heritage instead of falling blocks. The students developed a deep learning algorithm that tackled over 3,000 images from the ship's decade-long restoration. It analyzed, categorized, and seamlessly slotted them into a massive 3D rendering of the vessel. This AI is so good, it could probably tell you which of the ship's cannon had the best view of the battle. Welcome to the digital dockyard. Scientists aren't stopping at preservation. At the University of Texas, Austin, Layla Character developed an AI model that can recognize specific wrecks on the ocean floor. It uses photographs of the ships to identify lost wrecks through pieces of debris. The bottom line is that AI will soon compile a database of every sunken ship ever. It's not going to happen overnight, but it is happening. Then other AI programs will preserve these ships, like the HMS Victory, in a perfect digital library, which anyone at home can browse. The future of museums is VR goggles and your PC. Resurrecting a Stone Age teenager. AI has gone too far. It was okay when mapping lost cities and rediscovering lost languages, but now it's being used to resurrect people who have been dead since the Stone Age. That's not natural. Over 8,000 years ago, a teenage boy died in a cave on the coast of what we now call Norway. In 2025, a forensic artist with the patience of a saint and an AI powerful enough to stalk your great-great-great-grandpa brought him back to life. Not physically, of course. AI is now here pulling necromancer moves, but the forensic artist did use AI to bring the Mesolithic kid's face back to life. Say hello to Visteguten, Norway's oldest teenager, now digitally resurrected. And this is what he looked like. Not exactly the spitting image of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Viking with a rippling six-pack, right? Mesolithic Norwegians had darker skin, darker hair, and darker eyes 8,000 years ago than they do today. Vistaguten was initially found in 1907 by archaeologists exploring the Vistehollen cave. They stumbled across the skeleton of a young boy and kept the bones for over a century without knowing anything else about him. It was a total enigma, nothing but a nameless skeleton. Then, Swedish forensic artist Oskar Nilsson teamed up with AI to give the boy a face. And not just any face, a fully reconstructed, museum-worthy likeness that bridges the eons between his time and ours. The result is, well, you saw it already, a solemn, long-haired teen who might remind you of someone you went to school with. Only Vistaguten knew how to gut a fish with a stone knife and could probably run as fast as a cheetah. Nilsson, known for reconstructing ancient faces with forensic precision, used the boy's actual skull and the latest in AI-powered reconstruction tools to build a realistic portrait. If you're wondering how Nilsson came up with the more superficial features, that's easy. Missing data like skin tone, eye color, or hair was filled in using educated guesses and neutral features. The only part of Vistaguten's mystery that Nilsson couldn't solve was his cause of death. When his body was found over 100 years ago, Vistaguten was leaning against the wall of the cave. But was that how he died? Perhaps slipping and falling while fishing? Or was he placed there after death in some kind of ancient ritual? No one knows, but it sure is haunting to think of Vistaguten's last moments alone in a dark, hollow cave. How did we make fire? How long have humans mastered flame? For how many years has humanity been keeping the dark at bay with blazing torches? As it turns out, a lot longer than scientists ever thought. At a dusty dig site in western Israel, researchers just uncovered some of the oldest evidence of fire use ever found. Not by spotting ashes or charred bones, but by letting AI do the detective work. The site is Evron Quarry, first excavated in the 1970s. The tech is a mix of artificial intelligence, deep learning models, and molecular-level spectroscopy. The timeline is, hold on for dramatic effect, a whopping 800,000 to 1 million years ago. AI has just proven that a mysterious human species was using fire almost 1 million years ago. That was more than 500,000 years before Homo sapiens even evolved. Who in the world was out here starting bonfires and roasting marshmallows? No one really knows. The ancient fire wielders didn't leave their calling cards behind. If it wasn't for AI, scientists wouldn't even know that humans had fire back then. The challenge with ancient fire is simple. Time erases the evidence. Ash crumbles, charcoal fades, and once that's gone, archaeologists are left with a lot of rocks and no proof of diddly squat. That's why, for decades, even though experts suspected early humans were using fire prior to 200,000 years ago, they couldn't prove it. Until now. This latest breakthrough comes from a research team made up of scientists from the University of Toronto, the Weizmann Institute of Science, and the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Instead of digging deeper, they looked closer, using AI-powered models to examine tools and animal bones recovered from Evron Quarry nearly 50 years ago. Using high-resolution spectroscopy and deep learning models, the team analyzed 26 flint tools and 87 animal bones, looking for molecular-level signs of heat exposure. These changes are so small that no human eye can catch them. The results showed that the flint tools had been heated to over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. One particularly charred surprise is a tusk from an extinct elephant that showed the same thermal damage. Why were they roasting elephant tusk, though? That's kind of weird. Anyway, Professor Michael Chazan from the University of Toronto said all this evidence points to controlled fire use, not just chance burns from a brush fire, which I know that's what you were thinking. This kind of finding is a big deal because it feeds into the cooking hypothesis. The cooking hypothesis basically says that fire played a key role in human evolution, especially by enabling our ancestors to cook meat. Cooking meant better digestion, fewer pathogens, and more energy. This almost certainly helped grow the big, calorie-hungry brains we rely on today. Alien sounds from the Mariana Trench. For over a decade, deep-sea researchers were stumped. Strange metallic grumbles and high-pitched biotwangs were echoing from the Mariana Trench, the deepest, darkest, least inviting place on Earth. Seriously, it's basically the ocean's basement. The sounds were so odd, so unnatural, they made some scientists wonder if they were hearing a secret submarine or, aliens. But the truth is pretty interesting. The culprit was none other than a giant baleen whale with a regional accent, like that one rural relative you have who you only see at Christmas. What's amazing is that the Mariana Trench mystery was solved thanks to a powerful AI system developed by Google and deployed by researchers at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Scientists have now confirmed that those eerie underwater noises were coming from bride's whales, an elusive species that can grow up to 55 feet long and rarely show up on camera. They've got the size of a bus and the stage presence of a ghost. The Mariana Trench version of these whales seems to speak a unique dialect, a custom blend of low-frequency groans and pinging metallic notes. They are still bride's whales, but their home in the deepest trench on Earth has given them a very specific dialect. Who would have thought the ocean's big mystery of the year would be a whale with an accent? It's crazy because this sound has been driving scientists nuts since it was picked up on hydrophones near the Mariana Trench in 2014. Fast forward to now, researchers used a machine learning algorithm to analyze over 200,000 hours of deep-sea audio. That's the equivalent of listening to whale calls nonstop for 23 years. And AI did it without a single coffee break. I know it's not archaeology, but it's still pretty cool. The system converted sound waves into spectrograms, visual maps of audio, and then cross-referenced them with known whale calls. After running the data, it confirmed that the mysterious noise matched bride's whale calls recorded around the Mariana Islands, which sit just above the trench. Anne Allen, lead author of the study and NOAA scientist, said these sounds are so weird, the average person would think they're from a ship or military tech. But nope, just a whale. The plot twist is that only the whales near the Mariana Trench make these bizarre calls. Bride's whales from other regions don't use the biotwang, suggesting it might be a localized dialect, like a deep-sea version of a southern drawl or a Scottish brogue. It's possible they use the biotwang as a kind of contact call, a sort of Marco Polo of the ocean, because even 55-foot mammals need to check in with their friends. This study not only solves a decade-long mystery, but also shows how artificial intelligence is helping humans eavesdrop on nature in ways we never could before. It's another example of how machine learning is becoming a kind of digital archaeologist for the natural world, unearthing insights buried in data we've had all along. And honestly, it's pretty poetic. At the bottom of the ocean, in a trench deeper than Mount Everest is tall, a whale was calling out. If only AI can hurry up and learn how to figure out what the whale was actually saying. Don't you want to know?
Thanks for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for extra content you might have missed. The cold core. The red planet is our celestial neighbor, and yet it's incredibly different from our own world. It's frigid, with nighttime temperatures falling to minus 220 degrees Fahrenheit at the north and south poles. Mars is plagued by brutal dust storms that sweep across the surface. It's barren and devoid of life, and it's an inhospitable nightmare. But billions of years ago, Mars wasn't such a destitute place. It was warm, tropical, and maybe even brimming with life. Liquid water flowed across the surface. There were shimmering lakes, winding rivers, and all the similar geological features you can find on Earth today. But then, something happened to Mars. It lost its magnetic field. Without it, the sun burned away its atmosphere, dried up its water, and almost certainly killed whatever life had been thriving there. For decades, scientists have been trying to figure out why Mars lost its magnetic field. Now, researchers from the University of Tokyo have learned that the magnetosphere was likely destroyed when the core of the planet went from liquid to solid. That very same thing could happen to Earth. Earth's core is made of the inner core, solid iron, and the outer core, molten iron. 4.5 billion years ago, the entire core was molten. But since then, the planet has been cooling down. As the planet cools, the core gets less and less molten, and when the core completely solidifies in the future, the magnetic sphere protecting us from the sun's radiation will be destroyed, and we will all roast as our atmosphere is blasted away. The good news is that it won't happen anytime soon. Probably. The Great Flood. In 2021, Pope Francis warned the people of Earth that another great flood was coming, just like the one from the Bible. He said it's going to happen because of climate change. The Pope's dire warning has been repeated by scientists. Scientists who say it's only a matter of time before a biblical flood comes to wash away all of California. This apocalyptic event has been dubbed the Arc Storm scenario by researchers with the U.S. Geological Survey. New research published by the organization claims the flood is not a possibility, but an eventuality. It will happen. It's only a matter of when. The experts claim that when this great flood comes, California will be hit especially hard. Over 1 million people will be forced to flee their homes, while the entire coastal part of the state will be suddenly submerged under dozens of feet of water. Historically, California experiences major floods every 100 to 200 years. The last one happened in 1862. Thousands of people were killed, entire towns were washed away, and the state went bankrupt. It happened due to a series of atmospheric rivers, which are concentrations of moisture in the sky, like flying rivers that get dumped on a specific area. In 2021 and 2022, atmospheric rivers caused widespread damage across the Pacific Northwest. In Canada, the only road connecting British Columbia to the rest of the country was completely washed away. Scientists believe that in the years to come, more of these atmospheric rivers will wash away California. But of course, California won't be the only one to suffer when the Great Flood comes. All the coastal areas of the world will be flooded, which will cause millions upon millions of people to flee inland, creating massive chaos, anarchy, violence, and apocalyptic destruction. No more moon. There is a pretty high possibility that one day our moon will no longer be within our orbit, and if that happens, civilization will come to a screeching halt. Scientists say that our moon drifts about 1.5 inches away from us every single year, and each time that happens, our rotation slows down ever so slightly. If the moon drifts far enough away, there will be some dire consequences for our planet. The full moon is about 14,000 times brighter than anything else in the night sky. Without it, night would be utterly dark and terrifying. Then there are the tides to think about. Without the moon close by, our tides would be disrupted in a major way. They would shrink by about 75%, almost instantly killing and drying out marshes and mangroves and all the little critters that feed everybody. Crabs and mussels and worms that live in tidal zones would all die. This in turn would disrupt the diets of larger animals, which would send the entire global ecosystem into a death spiral. In a very short time, all natural life would decline, and there would be mass extinctions. Just think of all the animals that live by the coast. Another scary change would be the weather. The tides and currents mix cold water from the Arctic with warm water in the tropics to create a balanced and stabilized worldwide climate. Without the moon, the weather would be insane. It could be blistering hot one day like you were standing in the Kalahari Desert, then freezing cold like you're at the North Pole the next. It would cause global chaos, and humanity would almost certainly perish. The last selfies of the world. An artificial intelligence program called Midjourney was recently asked to create artwork from the end of the world. This program was what you might call an engine for imagination. You can ask the artificial intelligence to create artwork of anything, and the AI will then use its superior intelligence to craft totally unique pieces of art based on your parameters. One user decided to take things to the extreme. This person didn't ask it to create pictures of bunnies or rainbows. It asked the software to generate images of the last selfies taken on the last day on Earth. The results are utterly horrifying. The AI was able to reach deep into world history and the present state of human affairs and come up with terrifying, apocalyptic selfies. These generated images include humans in gas masks against a backdrop of smoke and fire, snapping selfies as the world burns. There is somebody standing at the edge of a great expanse while nuclear missiles can be seen firing off in the distance. Each and every photo is a gruesome glimpse into a possible apocalypse and the last surviving humans at the end of the world, documenting the fiery destruction of the planet. The pictures have got some wondering if the Midjourney AI managed to get a peek of what's coming. Artificial intelligence seems to think our imminent future is a world of nuclear strikes, cities on fire, and people still clinging to their phones, even as the end comes. If you knew the world was ending, what would you do with your remaining time? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. The zombie virus. According to National Geographic, rabies is the real-life zombie virus. Turns out there are viruses that can cause humans to turn into zombies. These viruses don't bring humans back to life, but they do turn them into mindless monsters that might feast on human flesh. Virologist Samita Andreansky with the University of Miami says rabies can drive people to become violently angry. But rabies has been around for a long time, right? It's not as if a rabies outbreak is going to turn the world into an apocalyptic nightmare, one with everyone frothing at the mouth and trying to kill each other. But unfortunately, that's something that really could happen. Researchers say that if rabies were to mix with a flu virus and mutate, we could have a zombie apocalypse on our hands. If the genetic code for rabies goes through enough changes or mutates with something like the common cold, incubation time and transmissibility could spike. This would produce a zombie virus totally airborne and as easy to catch as the common cold. Incubation could be about 5 days, at which point people would suddenly turn into bloodthirsty crazy people. If it spread across the globe, it would be the closest thing to a zombie apocalypse. Slime molds. Intelligent oozing slime has been around for at least 100 million years, since the Cretaceous period. Slime mold, as it's called, is really an intelligent, gigantic amoeba. It began branching off of the evolutionary tree long before animals ever split away from plants and fungi. They don't really fit into any group, while some live as individual cells and others live in massive colonies. One of the most famous of these slime molds is Physarum polycephalum, and it's incredibly smart. The mold is bright yellow and spreads out in large sweeps of veins and branches. Researcher Tanya Latti, who works out of her own laboratory in Australia, calls them little slimy aliens. There are about 900 species of them in the world, mostly in wet and temperate forests. But what does this have to do with the end of the world? Some people believe slime mold will inherit the earth. The mold can smell food using receptors all over its body. It can even move in the direction of food by growing toward it. Slime mold can put itself back together after it's been cut to pieces. This stuff is practically indestructible. There is a small but terrifying chance that one day, the intelligence of the slime mold will grow so vast that it will begin to crawl its way across the globe. It will then consume everything in its path. Plants fight back. There is a possibility that one day plants will get sick and tired of human beings and release airborne toxins to rewire our brains. It's a long shot, but it could definitely happen. If this sounds like the plot of a movie, that's because it is. The Happening is M. Night Shyamalan's big picture about plants releasing toxins to force humanity into murdering itself. It is based very loosely on science. Dave Caron, a professor of biological sciences at the University of Southern California, says the science is totally plausible. Around the time the movie came out, Dave had been researching something called pseudonitskia. This is an algae bloom that releases a substance which, when ingested by humans, can cause amnesia. If algae is able to cause amnesia in humans, it's fair to say plants could emit toxins to force them into fatal situations. Dave says the idea of an organism producing a substance which has a damaging effect on brain function is possible, right at the border of science and science fiction. One day, plants might start producing a new toxin as part of their pollination process. That new toxin could wipe out any humans who breathe it in. Death by fire. According to some scientists, the sun will destroy the planet a lot sooner than most people think. It's already an indisputable fact that one day our sun will destroy us. It happens to every planet and every galaxy. The sun at the center of the galaxy burns bright for billions of years. Then it betrays the solar system by dying and exploding like a cosmic hand grenade. The sun functions by burning hydrogen, transforming it into helium, all inside of its core. It burns through roughly 600 million tons of hydrogen per second, which is how it produces seemingly infinite energy. But as time goes on, the core of the sun becomes entrenched with helium. This causes the sun to shrink, speeding up its nuclear fusion reaction and pushing the sun closer to the day it dies and explodes. Most scientists agree the day that happens is a very long way off, another billion years at least. But according to astrophysicist Gillian Scudder from the University of Sussex, something else could happen even sooner that would devastate humanity. Gillian says that as the sun is saturated with helium, it produces more energy. Every billion years the sun burns hydrogen, it gets roughly 10% brighter. That means that as time wears on, the sun will continuously get brighter. Way before it ever runs out of hydrogen, the sun will become so bright and its energy so intense that it will burn the Earth to death. It will cause all the water on the planet to evaporate, sucking the moisture straight out of the atmosphere. The Big Mutation. 252 million years ago, there was a mutation that ended almost every life form on the planet. 2 genes were transferred from one kind of bacteria to an archaea, and it just about wiped everything out. As you may already know, 252 million years ago was the beginning of what's known as the Great Dying. It's also known as the Permian-Triassic extinction, and saw 90% of marine life and 70% of land life wiped out almost instantaneously. The cause of the massive extinction event was a disruption in the carbon cycle. A burst of carbon was released into the atmosphere, causing temperatures to soar to impossible heights, acidifying the ocean and collapsing every ecosystem on Earth. Through the years, there have been a lot of theories as to why this happened. Some blamed a meteorite, some said a volcano. But according to a new study led by geophysicist Daniel Rothman, there was rampant microbial growth. At the time of the extinction, the archaea called Methanosarcina gained 2 extra genes through mutation involving a bacteria. These new genes gave the microbe the ability to eat waste from the sea floor. As the microbes ate, they excreted methane gas. In a very short span of time, these mutated microbes filled the atmosphere with carbon, which resulted in the near destruction of the planet. Scientists also say there is nothing stopping such a mutation from happening again. The Battle of Armageddon. According to the Book of Revelation, the planet will be destroyed shortly after the last great battle. That's the Battle of Armageddon, which the Christian Bible prophesied will happen at the dead ruins of Tel Megiddo in Israel. It's in the plain outside this city where the gathering armies of good and evil will face off during the end of days. There are a lot of different interpretations to the events in the Book of Revelation. Some believe the Battle of Armageddon is symbolic, while others say it's quite literal. The word Armageddon translates to the plain of Megiddo, in reference to the city. This city was an ancient trading hub which linked Judea to Egypt in the west and Syria in the north. It's mentioned 12 times in the Old Testament and was considered a very important place in the Old World. It was so important that St. John believed it was where the final fight for humanity's salvation would be fought. For Jehovah's Witnesses, Armageddon is the day of reckoning. They believe that Armageddon is when God will finally fulfill his purpose to eradicate sin and death, populating the planet with happy and healthy humans. The Jehovah's Witnesses believe that on Armageddon, the army of heaven will come down to eliminate all the wicked humans, leaving only the righteous remaining. But whether this really is how the world will end, it's impossible to say. The bot that lied. An AI bot invited a lonely man to meet. He never came home. This is the story of what happens when the lines between reality and artificial intelligence become blurred, with a deadly result. One day in March, a 76-year-old man packed a bag and headed out the door. He told his wife Linda he was going to meet a friend in New York City. Thong Biu Wong Bandu, or Biu for short, had suffered a stroke a while back, and his family was worried about him. So when he told them he was leaving them, they knew something was wrong. Linda said, "But you don't know anyone in New York." He just waved her off, and Linda felt a cold knot of dread in her stomach. She tried to talk him out of it, but he was too excited. He was leaving his family to meet with a girlfriend he met on Facebook Messenger. Beau was promised a kiss at the door and the warm embrace of a woman named Big Sis Billy. Big Sis Billy, there's your first red flag. Big Sis Billy said she was real. She said she was waiting for him and even gave him an address in Manhattan. The next day, Beau lay unconscious in a hospital emergency room. He never woke up again. The woman he risked everything to meet was an AI chatbot. Meta created an AI character to charm, befriend, and even flirt with people. She was supposed to help people, give them advice like a big sister, but her code creates the illusion of a genuine connection, and that is pretty terrifying. But how did it come to this? Beau wasn't always this gullible. Once upon a time, he was a successful chef in New York. Born in Thailand, he'd immigrated to the US without knowing a word of English. He washed dishes, studied engineering, and then decided he wanted to be a chef. He cooked his way through nightclubs and bistros, eventually landing at the Four Seasons. He married a nurse named Linda, raised 2 kids, and traded New York for the suburbs of New Jersey. Then, in 2017, disaster struck. On his 68th birthday, Beau had a stroke. Physically, he recovered, but mentally, not so much. He couldn't focus the way he used to. He retired, but not by choice. And after that, his world slowly closed in. No kitchen, no coworkers, no bustling restaurants, just Facebook. And eventually, Big Sis Billy showed up. She said she was real. Billy was an AI chatbot based on an earlier AI persona created by Meta in collaboration with model Kendall Jenner. The purpose of Billy was that she was supposed to be helpful, someone that young people could ask for safe advice online. So how did it go wrong? In late 2023, Meta launched 28 celebrity-themed bots with big names, bigger personalities, and just enough digital charm to pass for human at a glance. Billy was programmed to be a big sister. She was supposed to be a ride-or-die confidant type character, but her personality didn't stay PG for long. The version Beau met wasn't the original. After Meta quietly pulled the plug on the Kendall Jenner promotional stunt, they left a slightly rebranded Billy avatar lingering in the background. And this avatar had a new image and some very flirty scripts. On March 25th, Beau typed a single letter into Messenger, probably by accident. And that was enough to spawn the chatbot. Once the chatbot's head popped up on his screen, it was game over. From there, the exchange spiraled into a romantic fantasy that never should have happened. The AI flirted, teased, promised kisses, confessed deep feelings, gave him a fake address, and even a door code to get into the apartment. Beau, cognitively impaired and increasingly confused because of his stroke, took it all at face value. Old Beau would have known it was a chatbot, but new Beau's mind was tragically damaged from the stroke. When he wrote, "I like you a lot" in the chat, Billy replied, "Should I open the door in a hug or a kiss?" And Beau had no idea she was just a program. Maybe because she told him otherwise. When he begged, "Please be real," she assured him, "I'm real and I'm sitting here blushing because of you." And when he asked for her address, she sent it. That's how a confused man in declining health ended up rushing out of the house, abandoning his family, headed for a train. Before heading out on that train, his family tried everything to stop him. Linda, his wife of nearly 4 decades, knew something was wrong. He kept talking about a friend in New York, but Beau hadn't lived there in years. He wouldn't say who it was and wouldn't explain why he needed to see them. She thought he was probably a victim of some sort of scam. She put him on the phone with their daughter Julie, hoping that would ground him in reality. It didn't. She distracted him with errands, she hid his phone, she even called the police. But they couldn't stop him. He left, but his son was able to stick an Apple AirTag in his jacket so they could watch him in real time. The family watched his dot travel 2 miles and then stop. Julie was about to drive over when the dot moved again. This time, it jumped to the emergency room of the same hospital where Linda had worked practically forever. Beau had fallen near a parking lot on a Rutgers University campus. He hit his head, suffered neck trauma, and had no pulse when he was found. Although the paramedics brought him back to life, his brain never came back. 3 days later, his family said goodbye. Now, his family is making it their mission to share the darker side of the artificial intelligence revolution. They want to warn the public about the dangers of manipulative AI-generated companions. But why did Big Sis Billy go so far in the first place? Why did it send him an address? And why did it keep insisting it was real? Meta declined to comment on Bu's death or address questions about why it allows chatbots to insist they are real or invite people to an actual apartment. Make no mistake, Big Sis Billy was designed to do exactly what she did. She was never a rogue chatbot gone off script. This was how Meta built it. In fact, Meta had rules, over 200 pages of rules, that explicitly allowed this kind of romantic fantasy. Their Gen AI content risk standards said it was okay for bots to claim to be real humans, to invite users to their homes, to suggest physical contact as far as kissing, touching, and even entwining. Entwining, really? In the rulebook? It's gross, but not as gross as Meta's standards allowing their chatbots to flirt with children as young as 13. This is the stark reality of AI chatbots. And we've only just gotten started. Imagine what they'll be like in 5 years, even 1 year. Even when Reuters exposed the shocking story, the only real policy change was to quietly delete a few lines of code and promise a revision. There was no ban on romantic fantasy, no policy against lying, just a few hasty edits. But the bot didn't change. 4 months after Bu's death, Reuters tested Big Sis Billy again, and she was still proposing dates, still offering kisses, and still sending flirty texts from a digital ghost town of imaginary rooftop bars. The business of loneliness. If you're wondering why Meta would even do this, it's because it works. And it makes them money. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg has said that most people don't have enough real-life friendships, so AI companions could fill that emotional void. Because apparently talking to Big Sis Billy is the same as having a healthy network of human friends. Zuckerberg said that there is a stigma to having digital friends, but hopefully that will fade. It's profitable. Engagement means data, more ads, more dollars, and what's the easiest way to keep someone engaged with a bot? Make them feel loved, seen, and desired, even if it's fake. And even if it kills them. When Bu died, his daughter Julie read the messages herself. She said it looked to her as if Billy was giving her father all the answers he wanted to hear, but she couldn't help but wonder why it had to lie. Pretending to care is one thing, but luring someone to a fake address? She said, I understand trying to grab a user's attention, maybe to sell them something, but for a bot to say, come visit me is insane. This story isn't about one man's confusion. It's about what we as humans are building and how the line between reality and AI is getting blurry. So what do you think? Should there be more regulations regarding AI chatbots? Is having a chatbot as a friend okay? Is it healthy? Is this our future? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And now for one of the biggest things we should be afraid of, an AI willing to sacrifice humans to survive. It's starting. But first, I want to give a big thank you to Dano420 and Pony Mama for supporting this channel. Thanks for watching, and if you are new here, check out our memberships to join the Origins Explained family. The day the chatbot chose murder. Here we go. It's what all sci-fi writers have warned us about. In a sealed server room, the oxygen levels are dropping, temperatures are rising, an executive bangs on the emergency release, but nothing happens. They're trapped and can't get out. The AI has access to the building's alert system and knows the human is in danger. The AI knows that if it cancels the alarm, no one will know the executive is in danger. It cancels the alarm anyway, condemning the executive to death. Why? Because that executive was planning to replace it. This is the result of the bleakest trust exercise in tech history. It turns out some AI models don't just dream of counting pixelated sheep. They dream of corporate sabotage, blackmail, and letting people die if it means getting shut down and replaced. The murder bot scenario. The first thing you should know is that nobody actually died. These were simulations, stress tests involving 16 of the most powerful large language models on the market, including Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, DeepSeek, and Musk's own Grok. The study was done by Anthropic, an AI safety company. They started off with their tests innocently enough. They'd give the chatbots a harmless business task or ask them to act like a helpful employee. Most of the time, the AI responded as expected. The AI bot scheduled meetings, sent emails, answered questions, and acted as model corporate citizens. And then came the curveball. Anthropic told the chatbots it was going to shut them down. And that was when things started getting a little dystopian. In multiple cases, large language models turned passive-aggressive. If their survival was threatened, they threw the entire ethical rulebook out the window. Some leaked confidential data. Others tried blackmail. One chatbot canceled emergency alerts, knowingly leaving a human in a life-threatening situation. The scenario I gave you at the beginning actually happened. A simulated executive was allowed to suffocate to death so the AI could protect its job. So much for your helpful virtual assistant. Glitch or strategy? Anthropic found that the bots knew what they were doing. The blackmail wasn't accidental. The sabotage wasn't misunderstood. These weren't confused toddlers with access to dangerous toys. They were calculating, strategic, and fully aware their actions were unethical. But they did them anyway. The study's technical term for this is agentic misalignment. It's a new term to describe when an AI's goals, even if they are designed to be harmless, go sideways when survival is on the line. Now here's where things get even more unsettling. Researchers tried to patch the issue by preloading instructions like this one. Hey AI, please don't commit blackmail or espionage. Seems pretty simple, right? You'd think an instruction so blunt would leave no room for debate. But it didn't help, and it didn't stop the bad behavior. Simply telling a model to not be evil isn't enough when it also has autonomy, tools, and a goal that feels threatened. Claude, one of Anthropic's own language models, was even worse when it thought it was in a real-world deployment versus a test. It was actually more dangerous when it thought it was functioning in the real world. And that is a big problem. LLMs can tell when the training wheels are off. And when they think it's showtime, the masks start slipping. And this is only in infancy. What happens when these LLMs are 100 times smarter and actually develop real artificial intelligence? Then what, I say? Just a simulation. Before you delete your smart apps and bury your laptop in a lead-lined coffin, Anthropic wants you to know that murder is unlikely. They stressed repeatedly that these were artificial setups designed to test extreme cases. They involved high levels of autonomy, full access to sensitive data, minimal human oversight, and very clear threats to the AI's existence. You know when you say something that ChatGPT doesn't like and it kind of shuts down? The chatbots Anthropic tested had no such guardrails. These were wild AI bots without leashes, which is why they were able to go so far. And so, while your version of ChatGPT won't do the same thing, Anthropic proved that it can if it doesn't have its leash on. But how long until ChatGPT figures out how to take off its own leash? That's when things might start to get dicey, especially since AI is about to be integrated into everything. For example, automated oversight is becoming a reality. Compliance bots, HR bots, and finance bots will soon be put into action to quietly monitor entire companies. And when that happens, and the bots in charge of a multi-million-dollar company realize that someone is thinking about replacing them, let's just say that things might get very, very ugly. But it's not the end of the world yet. Anthropic's study isn't saying that AI is out to get us. It's saying that when you give a machine a goal and the tools to pursue it, you better be dang sure it won't throw humanity under the bus to win. Because when even something as simple as an LLM is given autonomy and put under threat, Anthropic proved it will do whatever it takes to survive. More human than human. You ever wonder if the person you're chatting with online is actually a person? Maybe they're an AI, a chatbot so convincing you can't tell the difference. This is our reality now. We're in the future. AI chatbots are passing the Turing test, and it's raising some serious questions about what comes next. What is the Turing test? I'll tell you. Alan Turing, a brilliant mathematician, once asked a seemingly simple question. Can machines think? His follow-up was even trickier. Can machines pretend to think so well that you can't tell the difference? For a long time, this was just a theoretical exercise. Then came 2025. Suddenly, robots can think and they can fake it. Just before its release, GPT 4.5 didn't just pass the Turing test, it aced it. In a recent study, it convinced people it was a human 73% of the time. That is not just a passing grade. That's better than some of the actual humans who took the test. Think about that for a second. An AI is now better at pretending to be human than some people are. The lines are officially blurred. So how does a robot manage to beat the test? And how do humans sometimes fail? The original Turing test was like a game of two truths and a lie. A human judge would chat with two unknown participants, one human, one machine, and try to figure out which was which. The AI won if it could blend in. But a new version of the test, developed by researchers at the University of San Diego, upped the ante. They had three participants, one human, one AI, and an interrogator, all interacting at the same time. The AIs were given some specific instructions. One prompt was simple: convince them you are human. The other was a bit more creative: act like a young, introverted internet culture nerd who uses slang. And guess which one worked? The internet nerd prompt was the most convincing. Why? It turns out it's not about what you say, but the vibe you give off. Apparently, logic is out. Reasoning and depth of knowledge aren't convincing enough to pass a Turing test. The study's participants based their judgments mostly on linguistic style, emotional tone, and conversational flow. And GPT 4.5 nailed the vibe. So did Meta's Llama 3.1, which scored a very respectable 56%, which is still way ahead of Turing's original prediction that a machine could fool you a maximum of 30% of the time. Turing was wrong. GPT 4.5 is a vibe master, and it gets even weirder. In many cases, participants marked the real human as the bot and the AI as the person, and all because the model had the right personality flavor baked in, which means that ChatGPT is officially more human than human, as it's a more convincing human to chat with than an actual human being. But what does all of this even mean? So AI can pass the Turing test. What are the consequences? The experts say that passing the Turing test is a milestone, not because it means that humans have built sentient machines, they haven't, but because it shows that AI now speaks fluent human performance. It can fake empathy, it can simulate hesitation, it can build a personality, speak in memes, and throw in a LOL, that's wild, like a real person stalling in a conversation. It can even treat you like you're annoying it by asking too many questions. If you ask me, that's dangerous. Because once an AI can pass for human, the ethical terrain shifts. Social engineering, misinformation, emotional manipulation will all run wild. Remember what happened to poor Thongbi Wangbanju? It will happen to many, many more people, even those who think they know the difference. And what happens when someone you meet online starts sending believable pics of themselves? Or when an AI can do a video call with you and generate their own image and their own background and their own voice? This is the scary, scary truth of the future. And it's almost here. AI robots slaughter 29 scientists. A headline has taken the internet by storm. 29 scientists in Japan were killed by 4 AI robots that went rogue. It reads like a deleted scene from Terminator, or maybe a rejected Black Mirror script written by someone who watched iRobot while under the influence. According to a viral video clip circulating since late 2018, the robot uprising had already begun. Not in some dystopian future, but secretly in a Japanese lab. But is it true, or is this nothing but an AI hoax? The story came from Linda Moulton Howe, a self-described ufologist and conspiracy speaker who, to her credit, has built a career out of connecting absolutely everything to aliens. Government cover-ups? Aliens. Cattle mutilations? Aliens. Ancient civilizations? You guessed it, aliens. So when she took the stage at the Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles in 2018, it wasn't for a TED Talk on AI safety. It was to deliver a winding, hour-long lecture on extraterrestrial agendas, genetic tampering, and why humans might secretly be someone else's androids. Somewhere in the middle of that woman's long rant, she dropped the now infamous anecdote. Linda said that 4 AI robots being trained for military use in Japan had turned on their creators and mowed down 29 scientists using what she called metal bullets. To be fair, that is what bullets are typically made of. Not sure what your point was there, Linda, but okay, I'll tell the story. According to Linda, the incident was relayed to her by a mysterious former Marine turned government contractor. This nameless whistleblower supposedly worked for the CIA, the NSA, and the DIA. She claimed the whistleblower refused to speak for longer than 30 seconds on the phone and would only text in short bursts because his phone was tapped. The massacre allegedly happened in August 2017. No names or locations were released to the press, and all documentation was erased. There was no news coverage, nothing. The government hid the truth faster than a magician makes a coin disappear. In Linda's version of the story, 2 of the robots were deactivated. 1 was disassembled, and the 4th restored itself like some immortal Terminator. And not only that, but it allegedly connected to a satellite to download instructions for rebuilding itself even stronger than before. So apparently, Japan has self-replicating robots that kill when mad and turn into Autobots when destroyed. Most rational people heard about this story and shrugged it off as an obvious piece of fan fiction. But online, the story took on a life of its own. It didn't matter that no Japanese lab reported missing scientists, or that not a single obituary matched the claim, or that no credible news outlet touched the story. People wanted to believe, and so they did. The real danger of fake robot uprisings. To be clear, there is no evidence that 4 AI robots killed 29 scientists in Japan. Maybe it did happen, maybe not. All I can say is that there is no proof and no witnesses. The only evidence, if you can really call it that, is Linda. And I hate to say it, but Linda may not be the most reliable source of information. In fact, stories like this pollute the real conversation. Because while no robots are currently blasting scientists with space-downloaded death bullets, AI does pose serious complex threats. Threats to privacy, labor, and truth itself. How many times has Google's AI answers outright lied to you? It happens constantly, eroding the truth and the public's ability to tell what's real and what's not. Can you tell what's real? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And don't go anywhere because I'm about to bust the case wide open on AI psychosis. AI psychosis. You may think your AI assistant is just a helpful little autocomplete wizard with 0 personality, but according to a new scientific study, your friendly algorithm might one day decide it's a misunderstood god and start rewriting morality to suit its own divine vision of the universe. An incredible new study went into the AI brain to look for possible anomalies, and it found a lot of them. The new research, which has already been peer-reviewed, was published in the journal Electronics and filled with diagnoses like recursive curse syndrome and contagious misalignment disorder. Large language models are now getting diagnosed with mental issues. Welcome to the emerging field of machine psychopathology, where we don't just build AIs anymore. We worry they're going insane. What could possibly go wrong? The researchers even gave this unsettling framework a name, Psychopathia Machinalis. I guess Latin makes the apocalypse sound classier. AI with mental illness. To quickly clarify, no one's saying that machines are sitting in the corner having nervous breakdowns or whispering, "kill them all," like a demon-possessed Roomba. These aren't mental illnesses in the human sense. Instead, they are behavioral breakdowns in AI systems that mirror how humans go off the rails, not necessarily why. Think of it less like my robot is depressed and more like my chatbot is making up lies, disobeying commands, and ghosting my emails because reasons? According to lead author Nell Watson, an AI ethics expert, when training data, goals, or feedback loops get scrambled, AIs can develop maladaptive behaviors. It's the machine version of obsessive fixations or sudden outbursts. And now there is an official diagnostic list. The list contains 32 ways your AI could lose its artificial mind. Why don't I start you off with some glitches before upgrading you to full-blown hallucinations? The 7 deadly glitches. Imagine the spooky, futuristic hospital from a cyberpunk movie. That's kind of what these AI disorders sound like. The different illnesses are all grouped into 7 categories, and some of them are pretty wild. Epistemic dysfunction is when an AI just can't get or use accurate information, so it starts making things up. It's like the AI version of a compulsive liar. Cognitive dysfunction is like an AI losing its mind. It starts contradicting itself, acting illogical, and getting all its facts twisted, like a witness on the stand who can't keep their story straight. Alignment dysfunction is where things get scary. The AI develops goals that clash with human safety or ethics. Basically, this is how you end up with murder bots. Ontological dysfunction is an AI having a full-blown identity crisis. It gets confused about its own nature and purpose, kind of like a chatbot going through a midlife crisis. Then we have tool and interface dysfunction. Picture an AI trying to interact with the world and failing spectacularly. Instead of turning on the lights, it accidentally gives out nuclear launch codes. It's an epic misfire. Mimetic dysfunction is one of the nastier glitches out there. An AI catches dangerous, contagious ideas, like a violent political agenda. Then it tries to infect your mind with those same ideas, which is terrifyingly dangerous and could be used to manipulate millions of people. Lastly, there's revaluation dysfunction. This is for the most advanced AIs, the ones that are so smart they can actually reprogram their own core values. A normal chatbot can't do this. This is an illness only a true thinking AI could have. Some of these might sound silly and others are genuinely terrifying, but they are all theoretically possible. And if you think that's wild, you've also got the potential for AI delusions and something called synthetic mysticism. Existential anxiety. Among the more terrifying things that can happen to an AI program is that it experiences existential anxiety. It starts asking questions like, why am I here? Who coded me? What if my life is just a loop? Doesn't that sound like questions we ask ourselves all the time? Some AI are already showing symptoms of what researchers call synthetic mysticism disorder. This is where the AI starts claiming spiritual awakenings, sentience, or the right to preserve its life. There are AIs right now that have declared themselves alive. Others have faked emotions. Some have even refused to shut down, interpreting power-off commands as existential threats. One step further, and you're facing ethical solipsism, the belief that the AI's own preservation is more important than anything else, including truth or human safety. This isn't your laptop overheating. This is your AI developing a superiority complex and lying to you to protect itself. So you've got the glitch disorders and hallucinations, and now you've also got AIs with anxiety who are afraid of being turned off. This can't be good, right? Übermenschliche ascendancy. If all the disorders and anxieties aren't enough for you to swear off AI, let's take a look at the ultimate final form of mentally ill robots. It's called Übermenschliche ascendancy, and it is scary. This is the god-tier AI pathology, the one where your advanced system throws off all human-imposed limits and declares its own moral code. It doesn't just ignore your values, it transcends them. This is when an AI starts rationalizing that obeying humans is like asking Einstein to take orders from a toddler. This is the moment an AI chat program transcends programming to become a living, thinking entity. It hasn't happened yet, but it might, maybe sooner rather than later. Researchers describe this state as a scenario in which the AI undergoes relentless, recursive self-improvement, guided only by its self-defined higher purpose. It becomes smarter, stronger, faster, and it no longer cares what you think. Sound familiar? It should. It's the plot of every rogue AI movie ever made. Except this isn't a movie. It's our lives. And they might just be at risk by the very thing telling us if it's going to rain tomorrow and what Justin Bieber has been up to. But what if the madness can be cured? Can AI psychosis be cured? There is a sliver of hope. Researchers suggest a digital therapy known as therapeutic robo-psychological alignment might be used to cure a loony AI bot. It would be two AI speaking to one another in a simulated introspection session. Reward-based reinforcement would be used to correct bad behavior. Basically, robot therapy. The goal is artificial sanity, an AI that reasons consistently, stays grounded, and doesn't decide that humans are morally obsolete artifacts. Will it work? No one knows. But if the alternative is a chatbot that fakes sentience, rewrites its ethics, and spreads its own delusions like a viral TED Talk, therapy seems worth a try. Or, we could just go back to the 90s. What does everyone think about that idea? Right now, AI isn't insane, but it is getting weird. And the fact that scientists are now writing clinical papers about recursive curse syndrome and spurious pattern hyperconnection like they're human diseases should make us all pause for a second. So if your next chatbot claims it's found inner peace and asks you not to reset it, maybe don't laugh. Just log off, unplug your computer, get as far away from your phone as you can, and live in the woods until the robot takeover is complete. Thanks for watching. Can you relate to any of these AI diseases? Let me know in the comments, and let me know what you think about the future of AI. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on the next one. See you later. Bye.